audience. When you're making a product for an audience, to me, that's the greatest form of art. And the greatest commercial designer of movies has got to be Spielberg. I mean, who makes Jurassic Park and Indiana Jones and all that,
Today's show is sponsored by Enigma Elements. As filmmakers, we're always looking for ways to level up production value of our projects and speed up our workflow. This is why I created Enigma Elements, your one-stop shop for film grains, color grading LUTs, vintage analog textures like VHS and CRT images, smoke, fog textures, DaVinci Resolve presets, and much more. After working as an editor, colorist, post, and VFX supervisor for almost 30 years, I know what film creatives need to level up their projects. Check out enigmaelements.com and use the coupon code IFH10 to get 10% off your order. I'll be adding new elements all the time. Again, that's Enigma, ENIGMA, elements.com. I'd like to welcome to the show Michael Feifer, brother. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It is not often I get to talk to a filmmaker who's first making a living in the business, let alone has the I mean, I thought my IMDb was impressive with like 60 things or 70 things that I've worked on, but you've produced and directed almost 100 projects, over 100 projects now. So yeah. I cannot wait to get into the weeds with you about this. So first and foremost, how did you get into this crazy film business?
Well, it actually should have started when I was very, very young. Actually, my father worked for 20th Century Fox in New York back in 1972. And it was actually 20th Century Fox who moved us out to Los Angeles. In fact, I'm actually in the Hollywood Reporter and Variety when I was born. I have a copy of one of them, which is kind of cool. But and then when we moved to Los Angeles, we moved to Sherman Oaks, and I went to elementary school at Roscommon Road Elementary School. And I went to school with all these celebrity kids, Peter Guber's daughter, J.J. Abrams, Ed Asner's kids, O.J. Simpson's kids. And and then my parents got divorced when I was in third grade. And I always look back and go, that was probably the worst thing that ever happened in my career. And my mom and the three of us, with three kids, moved to Tarzana, which is in the San Fernando Valley, which is sort of the suburbs of Los Angeles. And I had no interest in making movies growing up, actually. My dad worked for 20th Century Fox, and he worked for Carol Burnett. And then when that sort of stopped, he started making really, really low budget films that are really terrible, really crazy VHS video store filler kind of stuff. But again, I had no interest in making movies. When I was a kid, I was a photographer and artist and sculptor. My brother was into that. We drew all the time. And my brother went to Berkeley for architecture. And I went and visited him at Berkeley. I'm like, this is what I should be doing. This makes all the sense in the world. I'm going to be an architect. So I actually went to the University of Colorado in Boulder for architecture. And when I graduated Boulder, I worked at a design firm for a year. And after a year, my dad was making a movie called Fraternity Demon. And my brother was in between, I think, Berkeley and Harvard. And we said, let's go work on Dad's film and see what this is about. And it was a disaster. It was just you would not believe the stuff that was going down and the things that were falling apart. And my brother ended up being the AD, and I ended up sort of being the coordinator. We had never worked on a movie before, and we sort of helped to be the glue to hold it together. My brother went off to Harvard, and I stuck around and started working for my father. So I got into the business making movies with my father. So the next one, I worked as the assistant to the producers, and crazy stuff went on there. And I said, Dad, let me be the production coordinator. So if the line producer isn't pulling his weight, I'm there. And it just led in one thing into another, and just started making movies with my dad.
Now, I want you to kind of take everybody back, because we're both of similar vintages. You're a little bit ahead of me, if you will.
I'm 50. I was born in 1968.
Right. I'm an early 70s kid, but we're still similar vintages.
Yes.
So can you please explain to the tribe what it was like in the 80s and 90s making movies for a marketplace that's very different than it is today? I just want people to really understand what it was like back then.
Well, listen, back then it was all about the key art on the video box.
Oh, and they were so great, weren't they? Oh,
yes. In fact, my dad made a series of movies that really kind of put him on the map and made him a living, called Witchcraft.
Oh, and yeah, I remember that series quite well.
And actually, that came about because my dad made this movie called Firecross or he executive produced a movie, because he would finance these movies and hire young filmmakers to make them. Lawrence Bender, who made Quentin Tarantino's, produced all Quentin Tarantino, made his first movie for my dad. It's this crazy movie with Charlie Sheen reciting poetry. It's called Tale of Two Sisters.
Right.
But he made this movie called Firecross, and it had this terrible artwork. But a British company bought it, and they put the star pentagram with a sexy girl at the bottom. And then they sold it as this movie called Witchcraft. And then a company called Academy Entertainment came to my dad and said, hey, can you make Witchcraft 2? And that led to my dad making Witchcraft 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and on and on and on. In fact, I produced Witchcrafts 5 through 9. Witchcraft 5 is the first movie I produced. But back then, what we would do, and I miss it actually, would we go to the video stores, to Blockbuster or the local mom and pops, and browse the aisles and grab these VHS cassettes and look at the poster and go, well, that must be a good movie because the art looks great. Right. And then you get home and you pop the movie in and it's crap, but then you enjoy it because it's garbage,
Right.
And a lot of movies back then were shelf filler, It was shelf filler. In fact, I always thought that my dad, he hurt himself with the Witchcraft movies because it started with a W. And I always say, I would do my own research. I'm like, you should start your movies with an M or an E so that it wasn't at the top of the shelf, but it wasn't the bottom. Your movies would end up in the middle, and then people would find them, But
amazing, man. I've actually dealt with distributors who have changed the name to A, just so it starts at the top of the list when for buyers are looking at it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, like Aardvark. People with Aardvark companies, it's AA. But back then we shot everything on 16 millimeter. Actually, I've directed 60 movies. And only the first one I've directed I shot on film. Every other movie is digital. And I'm a huge fan of digital. I'm not a fan of film at all, unless you have a lot of money, because it's a lot of money. And these days you can make digital look like film and it's fine. But back then we shot everything on film. We'd have somebody dedicated to just the fog machine to keep the fog going. The lights were bigger back then. There were problems with film all the time.
Lab flashing.
The worst thing is wake up in the morning, you get the call from the lab. With the lab
worst.
The worst. Yeah. So back then it was, little film chips scratching the film or scratches on the film. I remember once we had 1,000-foot 35 millimeter loads, and the loader was a very small girl who had little hands. And what we found out was she was loading the film, and the film was coning. It was dropping out in the middle because her hands weren't big enough. And so we were getting these horizontal scratches all across the film. So things like that would happen. And but that was the nature of film, and it was exciting. I don't really want to deal with it ever again in my life. Excitement
unless you've got millions and millions of dollars, and then you've got teams of people who are high-end professionals who will handle that for you.
And they still have problems, but they have money for reshoots and pickups and things.
I want you. So for everyone listening, there was a moment in time when there was a lack of content being created in the film industry. When you said shelf filler, that means you needed something to fill those shelves. So there wasn't.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was a time when crazy genre films
I know.
could find a place. The Roger Corman type films. These days, it's hard for those films to actually find a place.
Yeah, trauma stuff and stuff like that. Yeah,
trauma stuff. Yeah. In fact, when my dad retired, or didn't retire, but my dad sold 30 of his films to Troma at one point, but Troma films and all a wide variety of genre films. And they found a home, I think, in the video stores, which was kind of cool. And people made more of those films. It's hard to make those films now and make money, but back then you could make crazy films that, combine a Wolfman and a Transformer or something, and they fight each other, and
and it looked horrible.
And they looked horrible, but we didn't know back then, really. I mean, it was probably Steven Spielberg and Jurassic Park who sort of
changed everything.
It changed everything, because I remember walking the theater and seeing, one of the dinosaurs and going, the world has changed, and all that stuff that I thought looked good now looks like crap. I mean,
I remember Corman. I think Corman came out right after Jurassic Park with like Carnosaurus or something that. I remember the box, and I was just like, wow. And it did not look as good.
It looked horrible. But if that came out before Jurassic Park,
it would have been fine.
Right.
It would.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big fan of what was it, Harry Hamlin and Clash of Titans, and
the
Harry Harryhausen,
Harry Harryhausen, yeah.
I mean,
all that kind of.
That was cool back then. Yeah.
It was very cool back then. So then, as far as on a business standpoint is concerned, I always tell people, like, in the 80s, if you just got a movie finished, it was sold, basically. Like, almost, pretty much. If you had a film shot on 16 millimeter and had just some bare, basic beginning, middle, end, and a soundtrack, you could sell it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not only could you sell it, if you were with the right video distributor, what was interesting back then, and I think a lot of your listeners might not know this, and I think it's really crazy, is that video stores basically, rather than they looked at their VHS cassettes as masters of the movie, meaning they had an actual movie master, which retailed for $99. So if you lost one, you had to pay $99, $100 to replace that thing. So what it means is that the filmmaker, the distributor, would then wholesale those VHS cassettes, the video store, for $30, $33. $33 is a lot of money to get for one movie. So you didn't really have to sell many copies to start making some good money, actually. And go ahead.
No, there was like thousands of video stores at the time. So
there were thousands of video stores. And then also I would go to the film markets with my father. The AFM back then was MeFed, which was the Milan film market, the Cain film market, and sell licenses for VHS to countries all over the world. Because they had video stores all over the world. So you could actually sell thousands of video cassettes in America and then sell licenses to territories all over the world simply just for VHS to fill up their video stores.
And then that continued with DVD in the 90s and the DVD, that was pretty much of an explosion when DVD, because
what happened is the DVD business actually caused it all to fall apart, because what happened was one executive at one studio, I think, decided that they're not going to retail VHS cassettes at $100 anymore. They're going to do and sell them just to video stores. They're going to do sell through, right? Which meant that the prices for the copies, the movies, went down to $19.99 or $11.99, and then that means that the filmmaker and the distributors were only getting wholesale of $3, $4, $5, $6, and that really cut into everybody's profits. So now you had, but you also could sell more. But what it meant was the studios were selling because they were promoting. It's a funny thing about movies is that a movie studio makes a movie for $200 million and they spend $100 million to tell you how good it is that you should go see it. Whereas when we make independent films, we might make a film for $300,000 and we don't have any money actually and spend no money on marketing to tell people to go see it. So studios understand that, So back in the DVD days, the studios were just, filling the market up. And do you remember the term rack jobbers? Those were, those were people who had racks and they would fill them up with DVDs and then put them by cash registers, or point of purchase displays. And the people who sort of had the marketing monies to do those, and the studios that had the marketing monies to get their DVDs in all the stores, they were able to sell a lot of copies. And then what happened was the smaller movies and the smaller distributors and the genre movies, I think, started to fall off because they didn't have the marketing monies to then make up for only getting $3 wholesale or $4 wholesale or something. And it's too bad because a lot of those movies just don't exist anymore.
Yeah, but before you could make the studios could make a bad movie and they're like, well, we're good on DVD sales alone. Just on that, you would recoup.
Right.
Yeah. And then that hoodlum Netflix showed up and changed the game for everybody.
Well, that's a whole nother thing. I mean, there's a whole misnomer with Netflix that people are making money on Netflix. Studios are making money on Netflix. But
sure.
I had a movie that was on Netflix and we got something like $10,000 and it was downloaded like 150, 200,000 times, but we just had a flat fee. So I would hope that someday, I don't know the mystery of Netflix to tell you the truth, but it would be nice if they found a way to help indie filmmakers or genre. I'm not a fan, by the way, of indie filmmaking. I'm more of a fan of genre indie filmmaking. I'm not really interested in making,
art house films. All right.
Art house films. Yeah. I'd rather go back to the day of making, horror films and interesting, sci-fi films.
There's my favorite two titles I remember in the video stores, and I'll never forget these titles because they were so brilliantly done. The artwork was great. Sorority Babes in the Slimerama Bowl-orama.
right.
And Assault of the Killer Bimbos. And you saw three girls like in the air like this, like it was just, and they rented like water.
Like
Right.
I every day they would be out all the time.
And you don't really see them anymore. I mean, you see the crazy Sharknadoes and Sci-Fi Channel movies and things, but you don't see. But those are bigger budget movies too. You know, those
Sharknado's not done for like a 50 grand. Like that's a big budget film in the scope. The scope of what we're doing. Absolutely.
Right.
So, all right. So you've been able to produce over 100 projects and have directed how many now? 60 films you've directed yourself.
Yeah.
So that alone is fairly impressive. Like I said, I don't get this often on the show. So you've been able to figure out how to make a living in this business as an independent filmmaker or a genre independent filmmaker, if you like better. I want to ask you a bunch of questions in regards to your business on the business side of this. But first of all, how do you structure the financing to create 4 to 8 films a year, which is your current rate, depending on the year, anywhere between 4 to 8 feature films? And you're directing how many of those?
All of them.
So you direct all your films now.
Yeah. I won't make a movie with another director.
Really?
I have to direct everything. Yeah. I used to line produce movies before I was directing. Yeah. And it's a nightmare. And I'm going to be honest. I like to have total control of everything.
Why not?
The only way to actually stay on budget is for me to be the director and producer, honestly. I mean, I could do it, and I have situations where I might do that, but I also live for directing. I love directing movies. I highly suggest if you have an inkling of a dream or desire to go out there and do it, anybody can do it. I mean, you can use an iPhone, get the Filmic Pro app for $14.99, and your phone turns into
Tangerine, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Actually, Soderbergh with Unsane and High Flying Bird, they're shot on the iPhone.
They look fantastic.
So I live for directing, and that's what I enjoy most. So I'm not interested in giving up the reins to direct because I like it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Now, so how do you structure financing for like 4 to 8 films? I'm assuming you're not independently wealthy and you just like have a $300-400 million hedge fund that you could just dip into whenever you like.
So it's a different philosophy. Okay. So what's happening is a lot of your listeners might be looking for financing. Okay. I don't look for financing. I look for distributors to make content for. So there's all these distributors out there. You guys can all go to the American Film Market website and look at the exhibitors list, or the Cannes Film Market, or the Berlin Film Market, Toronto Film Festival. And there's exhibitors, and those exhibitors they're distributors, and they need content. And if they don't have content, then they don't have a business. So they need filmmakers to make the movies. A lot of those companies acquire movies, and some of those companies hire people like me to actually make them films. What happens when they acquire movies is they're trying to fit a round peg in a square hole, and it doesn't always fit what their buyers want. Someone like me, I make movies specifically for them. We design movies for their marketplace and for their buyers, and so those movies fit what their buyers want. In fact, sometimes they talk to their buyers ahead of time about what genre, what actors, and things like that. So rather than looking for financing, I look for companies to make movies for. And now the reason why companies hire me over other people, because you can hire anybody to make a movie. A kid out of film school can make a movie, and it might be better than my movies. But I have a track record and a professionalism that I bring to it, and a responsibility, a fiscal responsibility that I bring to it, that they then entrust me with the money to make the movies. So so again, rather than finding financing to make movies, I find companies to hire me to make movies, and that's my business. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. But you also have a track record that you can lean on. So would this kind of work for someone who hasn't had a track record? I mean, I'm assuming if you're able to produce 1 to 2 feature films and make a relationship with a distribution company based off those films to go, hey, hire me to produce the next thing. What are you looking for?
Right. Well, to create a track record, I mean, if you look back at my career, I mean, I don't know, I sort of call it reverse nepotism. I'm not sure if it was the best thing for my career to start working for my father, but it gave me a very good sort of overall scope of the film business, because I was producing low budget movies. I was running his video label. I was going to the film markets with him. So I had a very good global and domestic perspective of filmmaking and understanding movies in a lower budget world, which is kind of what I call the AFM world of movies. Studios don't go to the American film market. It's another film market. You know?
I always tell people, I'm like, when they give me a title, I'm like, ooh, that's very AFM-y. That's an there's certain AFM-y titles. If you hear that, go, oh yeah, that stars Steven Seagal and Mike Tyson, right? Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly, right. I always say the key art should have well, I used to say AG, which is Explosion Girl Gun, on key art for AFM.
Yeah, exactly. That's great.
So I think that what people can do to build a track record is start getting. You have to start working on movies. You have to be in production. A lot of people, they want to skip the whole hard work part of making movies and go right to I'm a director, which is great.
With an Oscar, living in the hills, throwing wild parties. Yes, I get you.
Which is sad because it happens. I mean, this is actually, people say to me all the time, Mike, how come you don't make bigger movies? Well, that's because I would love to make bigger movies for studios, but studios look at me as like the schlock guy. Oh, he's directed 60 movies. He doesn't know what he's doing. You know,
as opposed to like he's directed 60 movies. He probably knows a little bit about what he's doing.
I always say, would you fly in a plane with a pilot who's never flown before? But the studios do that. A guy gets lucky and their movie shows at Sundance and it sells. And then they think that this person's a genius and they give them a Marvel movie to make and the thing falls apart and they have to do reshoots and, whatever. And I'm not a big fan of that. But
you and Ridley Scott both say the same thing. Ridley Scott said the exact same thing. He's like, how are they giving these $200 million movies to these young directors with no real track record? He goes, I don't understand it. I just don't understand it.
I know. I had a meeting at Sony actually last month, and the guy looks at my resume, and in the middle of this hour-long meeting, he gets his phone call from Bulgaria with the director and the producer, and he's yelling at them. And after 15 minutes, he hangs up and he just looks dejected. This poor producer over at Sony, and he looks worn out. And I said, that doesn't happen on my films. He's like, well, it happened on my films. And I said, well, if you hire me to direct, you won't have that problem. He goes, well, I can't hire you to direct, but I can hire you to produce. And I said, well, I'm a director. Sorry. And he goes, well, I can't hire you to direct because the executives at the company, they're the ones who hire the directors and they hand me the directors. So all I have is these production problems because I have directors who don't know what they're doing because some executive of the company fell in love with somebody who, won a film festival somewhere. And then they go, well, there's your director. And they get stuck with them. So anyways,
interesting.
To get back with your question, I think that really you have to put the time and effort into really learning how to make movies. You really got to learn production from everywhere, from finding locations to casting actors to lenses to how to open and close a C-stand, what an Apple box is versus, what a tungsten versus HMI light is. I mean, you have to really learn your tools and put in the time. But when you're on set, putting in that time, really start asking each person, each department, what they do and why they do it and work in each department. If you get on a set as a production assistant, not only will you get paid, you'll get paid for learning, but it's up to you what you want to learn. And you can really learn how to make an entire movie in 3 weeks on an indie film. And an indie film is really just a microcosm of a big budget film. Big budget is more people and more money.
Right.
That's it. But it's still the same film language. It's still, the lighting is pretty much the same with a key light and a fill light. And, it's all the same, really. It's just, it's just magnified. But I think for people to really build up that track record is you gotta start working on movies. But you also, though, anybody can be a producer. It's the one business. That's why I'm not a big fan of film school because you spend 4 years going to film school, you spend all this money, and it's the one business you don't need a degree, you don't need a license, you don't need to pass the bar. You can literally get a business card.
Business card's all you need.
Exactly. So how do you be a producer? Well, what you do is you either write scripts or you find friends with scripts, or you can go on the internet. There's websites where you can actually search out and find scripts. Find a script that you like. Find 5 scripts you like, and now you have scripts. Now you have projects. Then. What is a producer? A producer is really someone who has a project or knows someone with a project, and then they know someone with money or a distribution company with money, and then joins them together, or you put your name on it as the director. You're not going to make it unless, you're not going to take your name off it as director unless the money's big enough or something. But at least you're creating, you have projects, and you never know who you're going to meet. I mean, I was involved with this movie once where the director had never made a movie before. He had worked for a big budget director. Had never made a movie before. He sent an email off to family and friends saying, I want to make this movie. I want it to be $800,000, just looking for money. A billionaire found the email and contacted him and financed his entire movie. I won't tell you what happened in that movie, but
I've worked on those movies. Trust me.
Let me tell you something. The billionaire got out of the business after that.
What
movie.
A shock! What a shock!
But he had a script and he had a dream and he started just working it. And
he had a script and a dream.
right, and he did it. He never directed another movie, But
Yeah,
but
it's
if you had a little, a lot of people go off and they direct more movies, but it's building a track record. It's looking at yourself as a producer. It's calling yourself a director. It's putting the time in. It's learning, spending time on your website, right, and learning how to make films, and putting the time in. I mean, I'm 50 years old. In my 20s, I was learning how to make films. In my 30s, I got married and had a kid, and now I was in a situation where I had to make films and make a living. I mean, when my wife and I got married and she was pregnant with my son, and the first year, I made very little money. I didn't have any work, and I'm like, I've got to figure this out. I'm either going to be a filmmaker or go off and go be an architect. And I decided, something, I'm a writer, director, and producer. And I started putting myself out there. And I was line producing a movie, and the director dropped out, and the producer said, "Well, why don't we co-direct it?" And I said, "No. By the way, don't ever co-direct a movie.
No.
It does nothing for your career." And I said, "No. I said, "You direct it." And he said, "No, I don't know how to direct." And he says, "You direct it." I said, "Fine, I'll take it." So I directed it. First movie I directed starred Jennifer Carpenter from Exorcism, Emily Rose, and Dexter, and all that, and Judd Nelson, and the father from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Michael. My thing just sorry about that.
It's all good.
So you just got to get deep into it. I mean, I was talking to someone recently who was living somewhere else, and I said, look, if you really want to make movies, you got to come to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. This is where it's really happening. I mean, they talk about Georgia, but Georgia's big budget movies. It's hard to get on those movies. There's movies being made, New York, but LA is really where you can come. You can get on Craigslist. You can find jobs. You can meet people. You can network. Everybody that comes here really has a joy for making movies, and then start working it. But also pay attention to the business, distributors, content, how it's made. Everybody needs content. So really kind of don't just get stuck in the filmmaking world, but go stop at AFM. Go buy a day pass at AFM. This might cost you $300. But it's worth it to go wander those halls and figure it out, Mm-hmm. So really, really invest time understanding the business of making movies,
Which is not the sexy part of making movies, but that's what separates the boys from the men, as they say. I just preach constantly about, like, guys, not only learn your craft, like, it's really nice to know what the lens does at the camera with the next Ks, and how to get that really funky shot from Kurosawa and that Spielberg shot. That's all fantastic. But if you don't know how to sell it, if you don't know how to get it out there, if you don't know how to brand it, you're not going to go anywhere.
Right. Well, there is a sexy side of selling films. In fact,
absolutely.
My father, that's what he lived for, going to France and sitting on the Croisette and drinking coffee and talking, making movies. He was like, I just sold 17 films for $500 a piece to Malaysia, then we'd go to Milan and we'd stay at a hotel and we'd walk across the piazza where the Duomo is and wait for our bus outside La Scala Opera House and take it. And it was like, it was actually, a very attractive lifestyle. So all these distributors who go to these film markets, they actually live this lifestyle where they're writing off everything and they're having dinners with their German buyers and their French buyers, and they're traveling the world. And that actually is kind of cool. And in fact, if you could get a job with one of these distributors, selling films with them, or just being an intern or working as the front desk person, you really learn a lot actually about the film business.
You've actually been the first person I've ever spoken to who's made distribution sexy. I mean, for the first time, that's the first time I've ever, I'm like, you know what? He's absolutely right. It is kind of sexy. If you look at it from that point of view. Now, what's a typical budget, if you don't mind me asking, like a range for these kind of films?
These kind of films, I'd say anywhere from $250,000 to say $600,000.
So there's a sweet spot. That's a sweet spot.
Well, a sweet spot is, let me say this, is that if you make a film that's like a Hallmark type film or a Lifetime type film, you're going to get domestically from them. I don't know the numbers, but let's say anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000 for domestic license rights. Okay. Then on the foreign markets, you're going to get, if you have a good distributor. Now, there's a whole thing with distributors. If you give a distributor your film, they're going to take 20 to 30%
if you're lucky
off the top, right? And anyways, let's say they're going to do $200,000-$300,000 sales in the foreign markets, and then there's some other ancillary sales and things. Okay, well, we're talking now, if we're lucky, they're getting $500,000-$600,000 plus costs and things. So if you make a film for more than $300,000, $350,000 on this world market for independent television movies, you're really risking not making money. If you start getting into that $1 million, $2 million level of making movies, the theatrical market is gone for movies that type. The sales are not very good for movies. So you've hit a spot that's beyond that sweet spot, and then you better have a movie that costs $2 million. You better have a distributor who's willing to put up $5 million to tell people to go see the $2 million movie.
Right. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. Now back to the show. Yeah. And we know how often that happens.
Not very often anymore. It's kind of sad, actually, because those are actually good movies,
Right.
And some people have found, like sort of those action movies shot in Asia for that price that sort of sell all over the world. They find that niche, but that takes a lot of money to make those. Now, I'm a fan, though, of you can make anybody can make a movie. Well, let me just say this. You can actually do production of a movie for very little. It's the post-production that you got to spend a little bit of money and time on. You could have a friend edit, but you might have your friend editing for 2 months and they're pretty mad at you afterward, as opposed to friends helping you out for 2 or 3 weeks. You got to have good sound. And now on set, you can have bad sound on set as long as you have guide track. But now you have to ADR everything in post, which is okay. I mean, when I make a movie and I have 13 days to make a movie and there's a plane going over and everybody's like, wait on the plane. I said, no, don't wait. I can fix that in post. That's fine. As long as we can hear the actor, I have guide track. So, but you got to spend money on sound, on your sound designer to make sure that your sound passes QC, which is quality check.
Mm-hmm.
You got to make sure you spend some money on your mastering side, your color correction and how your masters are made. So you have to go to a proper facility to do that because, again, your movie has to pass QC, which is quality check. If it doesn't pass QC, a buyer's not going to buy it. Netflix isn't going to buy it. Lifetime's not going to buy it. Hallmark and all the TF1 in France is not going to buy it. So you actually have to spend your money in post to make sure that your film passes all of the quality checks that it's expected to. And as good a quality film as I do, you send it for quality check, and these guys pick out little teeny things.
Have you ever made, in all your 100+ movies, have you ever gotten one without a note back?
No, because the guys who do QC, they're like the hall monitors at school, like.
But it also is just their job to find something. Like I've posted and I've delivered probably 50, 60 features in my day.
Right.
And I always tell the producers, I'm like, look, it's nothing personal, man. No matter how perfect we are, we're going to get something back because they have to justify their job. If not, they're like, yeah, it's good. Move it along. That doesn't happen.
Right. I mean, they get a little picky on things. I mean, what happens?
They do.
Right. What happens is your listeners might not know, but they rate the quality of the issue as a 3, 2, or 1, and 3 is the worst. And 2s usually you don't have to worry about. 3s though you always have to fix. But a lot of times they'll pick a 3. In fact, I had recently a call out of something at a 3 where the QC operator decided that the B-roll shot of a car passing by on a highway with I had 2 stand-ins in the car, like I had my production designer and my grip driving the car or something, and they decided that they didn't look like the actual actors, even though behind the glass there's like reflection, you can't tell who it is.
But that's not something that can be fixed, really.
Right, it's none of their business.
It's none of their business.
Move on. I think they match. Move on. But they labeled that a 3, so I had to fight with my distributor and fight over him. Like, that's none of their business. But there's other things they find, like pixelated. Sometimes you have a dropped out pixel you have to fix.
Sure.
Or sometimes the brow of your camera comes down and you get just a little vignette at the top.
Fair enough.
Just push in a little bit.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll give you one because I love telling this story. The worst QC film I ever worked on. Okay. Yeah. You're going to get a kick out of this, I'm sure. Okay. So it's a director who has no business directing ever. ever.
Right.
Imagine the most egotistical, crazy first-time director who's literally, I mean, the only thing he's missing is a monocle and a blowhorn. I mean, seriously. A DP who has never DP'd a day in his life.
Oh my gosh.
With
That's
three different, so they're shooting on an HD camera, but 3 different brands.
Right.
Okay, 3 different brands. And when I get it back, and it's starring, of course, Eric Roberts and Michael Madsen. Of course. Right. Why wouldn't it be? Right?
With them, yes.
Okay, of course it's worse. If it's not with Eric Roberts or Danny Trejo, it's not really a movie. So I get it back and I'm editing this and I'm like, first of all, camera B, dead pixel, the whole movie. Whole movie, dead pixel. Whole movie, dead pixel. If that's no one ever checked. Oh no, but if that was the worst, camera C has crap on the lens, like blurred, like someone put Vaseline, literally.
Nobody ever cleaned it.
The whole movie, whole movie. And I told the producers, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get this to QC, and they kick it back, and I'm like, there's not guys. It's we're not re-editing the movie. We're gonna have to move on. Dead pixel, we'll fix the dead pixel. That's something that's fixable, but. I mean, the schmoshy lens cuts, I really can't do a whole lot about. I'm sorry.
No, you can't fix it. And that's where if you do go off and make your own movie, you've got to make sure technically there are certain things that you take care of technically, because at the end of the day, you have to sell it to a business.
Exactly. It's a product.
And it has to it's a product. Exactly. It's a product. In fact, this is what people sort of miss about movies. And movies are products, and you're in the commercial business of making commercial films. So, as much as I say, yeah, go shoot on your iPhone. Well, make sure the lens is clean. Make sure that you're shooting. You should shoot at 4K resolution so that you can. The big thing about 4K actually is really that. For me, digital pushes are great, but I'm able to reframe. If I have a crew member on the left side of the frame, I can
pop it up.
I can pop them out. I can change things up. I mean, so the bigger resolution, the better. And hard drives are cheap. I mean, I tell my crew all the time because I like to keep the camera rolling as long as possible. And I get really mad if someone yells cut. I say, only I yell cut. Nobody
Fair
yells
enough.
cut, right?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And because I tell them an 8 terabyte hard drive. I just bought an 8 terabyte hard drive off of Amazon for $130.
Sure.
I mean, do you have people have no comprehension of what film actually costs? Back in the day. My mind would go crazy with the sound of a film going through a mag. It was like ching, 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 because every foot is $1 because the film is 50 cents plus the transfers and everything. It's like it's $1. So you spend on an indie film everywhere from $150,000 to $300,000 for film, and in a studio film they're spending millions of dollars. But these days, 8 terabyte hard drive is $130. So
pretty much, yeah, absolutely.
So make sure you're shooting enough film. Make sure you're shooting 4K because there's no reason not to now. And make sure you're doing everything technically correct. Make sure you're cleaning your lenses, and check your film. And I do highly suggest having somebody. I sometimes, sometimes I'll go to Hawaii and film. When I go to Hawaii, I bring a skeleton crew and I do my own downloading, and I check my work, but I don't check it as good as my DIT guy that I have on set with me, who I call him the gatekeeper. And the gatekeeper is really important because he's the one that's going to come running to set and go, guys, I checked this shot and it's, you've got scratches or, there's
a dead pixel or
right.
Things like that. Now, what is a typical schedule, by the way, of one of these films? How many days normally?
13
days. So basically 2 weeks. Basically you're looking at 2 weeks.
3 weeks. I mean,
you're doing 5 day. You're doing 5 day weeks.
Yeah. 2-5. I mean, it depends how it works out. Sometimes it'll be a 4. I like starting on a Tuesday because Monday gives you that one last day of prep before starting. So if I do that, I might go 4 days, then 5 days, then 3 days, whatever. I don't like shooting on weekends if I don't have to because I like time for my family. Also, crew, they like their weekends too.
Sure.
The last film I did, I shot at a high school at the beginning of the shoot, which made me stuck shooting weekends for the 3 weeks. And when you have Thursday and Friday off, your crew, they're not actually taking a break. They're taking other jobs, or that Thursday, Friday doesn't feel like a weekend. So I like to do that. But this last film I did was 14 days plus kind of a half day for this stunt we did where we threw a car in the water and shot a girl in the car in the water. But generally not more than 3 weeks. I shot a Western last year. That was 17 days actually. But I've also done tons of films in 10 days. In fact, your listeners might enjoy. I made this whole series of films based on true crime stories or serial killers.
Yeah, like Ted Bundy.
Lionsgate released them.
Right.
Ted Bundy, Richard Speck, Boston Strangler, Henry Lee Lucas. Those were all made in 10 days for about $125,000
each.
And each, yeah.
That's insane.
and they're I mean, sure, you can watch those films and you can, like, one of my films, I think they compared it to David Fincher's Zodiac, and like, it's not as good as David Fincher's Zodiac. What are you talking about? This is $100 million movie, you know?
And it's arguably one of the greatest masters working in cinema today.
Right. But
I mean, like, come on.
Like, don't compare. It's like comparing a Honda to a Ferrari. I mean,
no pun intended. Thank you, sir.
Well, a Honda will get you there just as well. In fact, better gas mileage.
Much better.
Right. So those films, though, you know, they're a joy to make. Those were good times in my life making those movies. I really enjoyed making those, and we did a lot for the time and for the money we had, and I was free to do anything I want. And shooting horror films is really a blast because you can really change up the film language. You know, you can really put your camera anywhere you want. When I make Lifetime movies, I have to actually be careful. I can only shoot handheld, for instance, in a really frantic situation. I can't shoot handheld in just a family talking at home kind of thing and add a little something. But a horror film, you can do it all over the place, you know.
Is that your favorite genre to shoot in?
Horror?
Yeah.
You know, I like any genre. I think if you're a storyteller, every genre works. I enjoy making. You know, there's something about the rawness of shooting a horror film or like a true crime. You know, I like shooting in like dingy, terrible locations. Like, we used to shoot at Lincoln Heights Jail in LA, which is closed now. It's closed in 1964. It was just a great location to film in. And even though you're inhaling asbestos, it's just a great look and feel. I don't like shooting in big, beautiful houses. The homeowners are on top of you all the time. They're looking at their floors, thinking you scratch them, and they're generic looking. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I like working in dingy locations. So horror films sort of lend to those sorts of locations. You know,
what is the most profitable genre for you?
Well, 100%.
In today's world.
Well, so this is something that I think is really important for your listeners to recognize, is that if there's basically only 2 or 3 genres that really you can be sure if you make it right, you're gonna. I mean, I'm not gonna say you're gonna make money, because it's hard to make money making movies, you know. But you have your best chance at making a profit, and that is the female-centric thriller genre. Okay, that is a genre unto its own.
You mean so Lifetime, basically? Lifetime
movies, yeah. Romantic comedy, Hallmark movies, and then romantic comedies with animals.
Oh no! Anytime you put a dog in a movie, it's an easy sell.
It is an easier sell to do a dog movie. Anything else, you're risking your investors' money. It's really going to be very hard to find a distributor. If you find a distributor like I do to hire you to make movies, they're really going to want those 2 genres, romantic comedy and female-centric thriller. Now, female-centric thriller can fall into, like, you know, Black Market Babies or Drug-Addicted Mother or whatever it might be, you know. But
sure, Lifetime. You just have to say Lifetime. That's pretty much all you have to do is say Lifetime, and everybody gets it.
I make most of my living right now making Lifetime. I was the serial killer guy, and then I was the dog Christmas guy. I made The Dog Who Saved Christmas, The Dog Who Saved Christmas Vacation, and Christmas Wedding Tale, TAIL. And then I got more and more orders to make Lifetime movies. Now I have 30 movies that rotate on Lifetime at any given time. And of the 8 movies I made in the last 12 months, they were all Lifetime movies except for one of them, you know.
Would you recommend also throwing Christmas movies? What's your feeling on making Christmas movies, since you've made a handful of them? I mean, I'm assuming that's. I mean, if you, it's a good mark. It's a good product to sell.
Well, it falls into the romantic comedy genre. So if you make a romantic comedy, it doesn't hurt to throw Christmas in. Just know when you're making Christmas movies, you're really competing with a lot of people and Hallmark movies and things. And then you have a higher budget for production design, because you have to throw in Christmas everywhere.
Right. In fact,
I don't know. My son has this little Christmas tree that's like this big with lights on it. It plugs in, and we have a joke where we try to put it, like, I'll have a scene with everywhere. Let's say I've got 4 people in a scene. I have to cover all of them, right? So I'll try to put the Christmas tree in every medium or close-up shot behind each person. It's the same tree.
Of course.
So you do have to fill up Christmas movies with Christmas, and actually it starts to get a little expensive, to tell you the truth.
Unless you're shooting around Christmas time.
Well, it's still,
of course.
Yeah, no, it helps. I mean, I've actually, of all the Christmas movies I've only made 2 at Christmas time. One, I made at Keystone Resort in Colorado because I said to my producers, I'm like, guys, can we please make a movie in the snow, a Christmas movie in the snow? And they said, well, if you could figure out how to make it in the snow, we'll do it. And I'm like, so I actually got Keystone Resort in Colorado to give me the whole resort for free and all the lodging for free. And we went up to Keystone and we shot. And it's called The Dog Who Saved Christmas Vacation. And then I made another movie called Nanny for Christmas that we shot at Christmas time. And I used the ice skating rink at Pershing Square in downtown LA, and all the lights were up. And then we shot in Beverly Hills and all the lights were up. But there's nothing wrong with a straight romantic comedy with a good twist and a good kind of edge. And then, if you could find yourself 2 actors who have been on regular television shows, they don't have to be big name actors. They don't have to be household names,
Yeah, I was going to ask you in regards to talent, because that's something that filmmakers get all crazed about. They just, they're like, this would be perfect for Will Smith. I'm like, sure it will be, right, but that's not going to happen because Will Smith's not making $100,000 movie. I'm just sorry, he's just not. He doesn't get out of his bed for less than 10 million. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I think there's a delusion in a lot of filmmakers' minds, and generally speaking, we all have delusions of grandeur in our own filmmaking minds. But the business of filmmaking, when you hire certain actors that have certain cachets, and some actors are very big overseas, and Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal still make a living overseas, but they don't do a whole lot here in the States. Right.
Nicolas Cage making a lot of movies lately, actually.
He has debts he has to pay apparently, but he's one of those weird anomalies that he can jump from major studio movie to, like, Sam Jackson. Sam Jackson can go do Avengers, but then he'll go do he will go do an indie.
Yeah, he's in Brie Larson's unicorn store.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah, but that was a favor to Brie, I'm sure.
Right.
But there are those, like Danny Trejo does that as well. He just jumps back. I mean, he is arguably in every film, I think, pretty much, other than your 70 or 80. But so can you give us a little bit of advice on how you approach these actors? I don't want to be as crass as to ask what their asking rates are, what you pay them for, because I know you can't say that, but I know from a fact from working with some of these actors, it is fairly affordable. Arguably, it's crazy.
Well, not only is it fairly affordable, but if you have some budget, you really do need to spend. You're better off putting some money in your budget for 2 lead actors with some TV series cachet behind them. They don't have to be household names, because it's worth it, because they're going to help sell your film later. Your film, as good as you think it is, will not. I mean, I like to use the example of the film Tully. That's Charlize Theron. Okay, if that didn't star Charlize Theron, nobody would see that movie.
Nobody.
Because it stars Charlize. So even in your film, you might get a Lifetime to buy your film, or a Hallmark to buy your film, or a Netflix, or get the foreign markets if you just have some actors with some television series cachet, and that doesn't have to be a big television series, but it just adds a little bit to it. So what your listeners might not understand about what's cool about making movies, first of all, is that you can actually, if I wanted to work with Bill Gates, I can't just call his agent and say, hey, I want to work with Bill Gates. Okay. But you can actually do that in Hollywood. You can actually work with anybody if you have the money. But on a lower level, there's a company called the Breakdown Services. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the Breakdown Services is actually how everybody really casts their movies. And what happens is the Breakdown Services, you send them your script. They will break down your script, all the characters, a synopsis, everything in like a day. It's the most amazing service. I don't know what they have, like people enslaved in little cubicles somewhere packed away in that place that are brilliant. I mean, they're really brilliant people. I can't believe I couldn't do that on my scripts. But in a day, they'll come up with a whole breakdown and everything. And then you approve that breakdown. And then that breakdown gets sent out to every single agent subscribes to the Breakdown Services. And every single agent, they subscribe to it. And usually the lower agents, they'll look through it. And then they pick their actors in their system who would fit certain parts. And so they'll do that on the internet. Then you access the Breakdown Services website, and then you'll have all of these actors submitted for your movie. And you'll go through and you'll actually shockingly find actor. Now, what happens is a lot of times agents will, you'll see Nicolas Cage's picture. Of course, he's never going to do it for your price, but sometimes they do that. But you'll get a kind of a good array of actors to consider for your movie. And if you start searching them out, you'll find that actually they have a lot of resume and a lot of experience. And it's a really great way to start if you're going to make a movie. Now, that works really well when you make a movie in Los Angeles because those actors live in Los Angeles. If you're not in Los Angeles, you have to take them out. And by the way, this is all assuming you're going to be SAG signatory. It's a whole nother thing, but it's not a big deal to be SAG signatory. They do charge you a security deposit, which is kind of gets cost. It's a pain. It takes a very long time to get it back, but you do get it back. I've never not gotten a security deposit back. As long as you pay people and you're on the up and up and you're a good producer and you play by the rules, it's fine. But the breakdown services gives you access through every single agency to every actor in the business. So you can cast your movie that way. Now, what you could do is just try to cast your first 2 leads and then everybody else, give your friends jobs. I'm a big fan of giving your friends jobs. It's really hard to get jobs in this business. So, if you have to audition your friends, do it. They should audition for you, but try to give it to your friends first.
Do you put the rate in the breakdown service?
Well, what happens is, for instance, I make my movies under the modified low budget agreement, which is $335 a day, $1166 a week, and it'll say modified low budget. So the agents then know that budget of that movie is from, say, $225,000 to $650,000.
But you're not going to get someone like a Dean Cain or someone like that for that price.
Well, Dean Cain will be submitted, who, by the way, I've made 5 movies with Dean.
I know. That's why I brought him up.
Yeah. But Dean doesn't work for that price.
Right.
You have to pay him above and beyond that.
Sure.
So Dean, by the way, is a great guy and one of my favorite people to work with.
Yeah,
and,
I've heard good things.
He's the best. In fact, what I like to do with Dean sometimes is like we did the Dog Who Saved Christmas Vacation in Colorado together, and his 2 characters, he played kind of the Daniel Stern, Joe Pesci characters in Home Alone, and when you're making a movie in a short amount of time, sometimes I'll literally give Dean a camera operator with a camera and a sound guy and take him and the other guy and just go off and shoot stuff. I'm like, I need you guys ducking behind trees. I need this, and this. And Dean's like, Mike, you got it. I'm going to go direct. And then Dean goes off and directs.
He's happy as hell.
He's just the best. He's just the best guy to work with. He's just such a super nice guy. But in any case, Dean's not going to work for only $1166 a week. So you have to decide if you're going to go with a Dean Cain, you got to have money set aside for him because, but there's also lots of other actors who will jump at a starring role. Maybe they've only played supporting roles on or guest spots on Grey's Anatomy and Law and Order, and they've never actually carried a movie, And so they might do it for $1166, or they might do it for $1166 plus a little extra money to make them feel like, okay, you're not just doing it for scale. There's a little more money there. And actors need work. And then, what happens sometimes is agents get 10%. They don't really want 10% of your measly $1166 a week. They want 10% of a bigger payday.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand. Yeah.
Well, they want their actors to be on television series for the next 10 years. And then they're making billions, So sometimes it's hard to get the agents to agree, but other actors take a little more control of their career and tell their agents, look, I want to see anything that passes by. By the way, by law, they're supposed to tell their actors about everything that they're offered, but that's an offer, not something that goes in the breakdown services. Anyways, you could cast your movie that way. And the breakdown services, it's free. I think if your movie's already signatory to SAG, it's free. If it's not, it's like $100.
It's nothing. Yeah, it's nothing.
It's nothing because it's a service for the agents. The agents pay for the service, so they need movies.
That's an insane thing. Yeah.
So that's an amazing thing about this business, though, is that you actually have access to every actor in the business. And these submissions come on the internet. You get their picture, you get their resume, you get video. You could click 1, 2, or 3 for the ones you like. Let's say you have 3 producers on your movie. You say, okay, I'm going to take the 1, and you take the 2, and you take the 3, and then you can see who likes who, and start. And then you could call up the agent to have them come in and audition if you want. Now, I highly suggest if someone's been on a lot of television shows, you can watch their reels. You don't really need to call them into audition. You can just have lunch with them, and get to know them and see if you like each other. It's amazing.
The one thing I find fascinating about just talking to someone like you with the wealth of experience that you have, because you are one of the more experienced. I mean, because you might only be 50 years old, but you have probably 100 years of experience underneath your belt, purely because making so many movies. I talk a lot about mindset. And filmmakers' mindsets and breaking through their own fears. And it doesn't seem like you have any of that. I'm sure you have your own fears and your own issues that we all have to deal with. But I want to just point this out because talking to you in your world, in the construct that you've created in your own head, making movies is like building a table. It's like building a house. It's just another thing. Doesn't seem to be any roadblocks to this whole like, oh, I've got to do this and I have to do that. Like, I've done 8 movies this year. Like, you're beyond that. I want you to tell the audience, what happened. I mean, I'm assuming, and this is just my own psychoanalysis of you, sir, if I may be so bold, is that you, at a very young age, you're just like, I just worked with my dad and he was making movies. So I guess if he's making movies, this is the thing you can go do. And now, it's just kind of grown into this because there doesn't seem to be any limitations to your beliefs of making movies.
Right. Well, listen, first of all, there were limitations in my 20s. I didn't think I could direct a film. In fact, I would be on set and I wouldn't understand screen direction. That scared me like crazy. I didn't understand crossing the line. Those are very critical things as a director to understand.
Yeah.
I put in the time. First of all, I love what I do. I love making movies. And I know every filmmaker out there really does want to be on set and they live for it. And everybody, there's just, if I could be a baseball player, what's that?
It's a magic.
There's something magical about it. Yeah. But you have to put in the time on set to really know your craft. So when I directed my first movie, I had actually produced 30 movies. I had AD'd 12, 13 movies. I had gotten myself very, very deeply involved. Now, I know I had an easier path because my father, and I sort of, I actually ended up having to be there to help him sort of stabilize things because his business was a bit of a mess. People were, stealing money here and making movies here that fell apart and whatever. And I sort of helped to stabilize that. But there's no reason why your listeners and viewers can't get on a movie set and start understanding the craft. In fact, you don't have to actually be on a movie set. You could create your own movie set. There's no reason why you can't be at home and start shooting scenes with your best friends. And there you are, a movie set. What is a movie set really? It's people with a script performing that script and you're filming them. That's all it is. But putting the time in. So I put in so much time before I directed a movie that I felt that the first movie I directed, I knew not more than anybody, but close to everything about every job. And when I was producing movies and, started off PAing for my dad and then producing movies for him, and then producing movies for other companies, actually, because other companies started asking me to produce movies for them because I knew them. I met them through networking. By the way, networking,
huge.
It's huge. Have lunches with people, call people up, ask them, networking is big. But really put the time in on set, learn everything, know what f-stops are, know what focal lengths are, learn what the different lights do. These days LED lights are huge and we shoot so much with lights, so much with LED lights. Understand the difference between resolutions of cameras and things. But one job that you could really do if you want to direct and really understand production is AD movies. So let's say you're a PA on a movie, get to know the director and then say to the director, hey, do you mind if I stand next to you and maybe, or do you mind if the next movie if I AD it, or teach me how, or say to the AD, can you teach me, can I shadow you and learn how to AD? Because assistant directing, if you're good at it, you're actually running the set. If you're good at it, you're setting up shots for your director. If you're good at it, you could tell the director, or if you're trying to learn it, hey, do me a favor, just sit there and tell me what you want, and I'm going to go convey those messages to the DP and the gaffer and everything, just to challenge yourself. So what I did when I was producing movies is I started ADing my movies for 2 reasons. One is because I didn't understand the pace of the movie, why we were slowing down, why we were going fast, why some delay happened. And you really only understand that if you're in the game. The way I look at movie sets is concentric circles. There's the middle circle, which is the actual filmmaking, which is the director, the DP, the gaffer, the grips, everybody together. The outside circle is the honey wagon, the production office, whatever it might be, where the actors are getting dressed and made up, costumes and everything, and then they're brought to the middle circle. And the outer circle is whether it's executive producers or the neighborhood's driving you crazy, whatever it might be. But really work in that inner circle and really pay attention so you can learn that. And so I started ADing my movies so I could control the pace, so I can understand what's going on. But also I started to hone my skills as a director. I realized that having gone to architecture school, having been a graphic designer, being a photographer since the 7th grade, that actually my skill set was perfect for making movies. My biggest fear actually was not just screen direction, but was actors. I was afraid, I'm not an actor. I didn't go to acting school. What do I know about acting? But actually it turns out that this is sort of the trick that, other directors are not going to agree, maybe, but my feeling with actors is it's not my job to tell you how to act. It's my job to tell you where to go. It's my job to direct the crew. actors know how to act. They're actually the most experienced ones on set, and they know what to do. Once you set them in motion, they want to be free, actually. So you can have talks with your actors beforehand about the character and kind of, but the script is a guide. And if your job as a director is to say, well, okay, I need you coming through the door. I need you to stop and drop your bags and be really upset, whatever it might be. And then your husband's going to come up and you're going to get in a fight with your husband. And then the two of you are going to go off in separate directions. Okay, well, let's rehearse that. And then you watch the actors kind of walk through it. And then they're like, well, what if I drop the bag here? And what if I get in a fight with my husband, but I go that way? Okay, that's good. Let's work that out. Once you work that out the blocking, then we can light it. And then it's locked in, and then we can start shooting it. And then once you shoot the master, then you can go in and shoot all the coverage. So your job as a director actually is to command the set, is to be a leader and direct your crew. Because now I got to go tell my DP, well, I want to start with a tracking shot on a 35, and then I want to come in and I want to shoot a 135 and an 85 over this shoulder. Then we're going to come over on this shoulder, and so you have to understand the process of how to capture that scene. And the way to capture that scene is with your crew. Your actors already know what they're doing within that. So my biggest fear was working with actors. And the first movie I directed was Jennifer Carpenter, who's a freaking genius actor. And I realized very quickly, just stay away from her, let her go, because she's amazing. I mean, I don't know if you ever saw Exorcism of Emily Rose. She did that
insane.
after. She's insane. And here I got to direct that was her first real part.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. Now back to the show.
And it's this kind of genre movie called Lethal Eviction, and real genre movie actually.
It's very AFM-y. It's a very AFM-y title, sir.
It's actually like AFM meets a little on the trauma side, actually.
There's a little bit of an 80s stank to that. There's a very little.
I didn't name it. Trust me.
It's a great 80s stank on that. I could just see that on the shelf with great cover art.
Yes, Jennifer Carpenter and Judd Nelson. By the way, that's another thing about titles, is that you make a movie, like I made a movie called Where Fate Meets for Lifetime, and didn't make it for Lifetime. People have to understand too, is when I make movies and we sell them Lifetime. Lifetime changed the name to Deadly Daycare.
Yes.
I made another movie called Snatched. Lifetime changed the name to The Nightmare Nanny. So they have their sort of naming.
They know what works.
Yeah, I did a movie called Maternal Instincts. It changed to Cradles for Cash, but and it's babies for cash, not cradles. Anyway, so really putting the time in, making the effort to really learn so for instance, a lot of PAs, they'll come work for me or crew members, and they won't ask me a question. Like I've had PAs. I had a friend's daughter work for me once, and she wanted to work on a movie, and she lived about 20 miles further west from me, so she would drive to my house and then ride with me in my car to set, and we'd sit in the car for a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, and she wouldn't ask me one question. And I finally said, why are you doing this? You're sitting with the director, the producer, and the writer, and you haven't asked me one question. She's like, I don't know. I'm like, this isn't right for you. If you're not asking questions, then you shouldn't be working on movies. If you're not curious about what other people are doing, then you shouldn't be working movies. Then you don't really have the gene inside you that makes you want to make movies, And so putting in the time, understanding the process, really learning craft takes away the fear of making movies and makes it be something that is just as simple as going to your kitchen and pulling out food and cooking, or getting dressed in the morning. And that's how it is for me. Setting up shot. I don't make shot lists. I don't need to make shot lists. I know if I have a scene and I read it or I wrote it or it's a script I didn't write and I come up with a concept for the scene, the blocking, I set my actors, we kind of make adjustments. I know every shot we need and I know how to convey that to my crew. And also sometimes you also have to know your constraints, meaning you might have a time constraint, you might have a lighting constraint. So, you might be, it's a day scene, but now it's turned to night. How am I going to shoot that? Well, I know, now I'm going to have to block the scene. So I'm not shooting towards that really big window, but I know those smaller windows, we can tent those and make them look like night, So it's understanding. If the more you understand your craft, then the better you'll be on set. And then on set, an important thing to know too when it comes to fear or insecurity: never admit you're wrong. Even if you're so freaking wrong, it doesn't matter. It's such a subjective thing. There is no such thing as wrong, except for eye lines. If you have eye lines wrong,
and
okay.
the line is wrong. Yeah,
the screen direction, which is actually, if someone teaches to you, it's actually very easy to learn. But
yeah,
I teach it well. I think a lot of people don't understand it because they don't quite they're not taught well. But those things are wrong. If you have two people speaking to each other and then you cut your movie together and they're both speaking this way, it's wrong. Okay. And it'll never work. Although you could flop the shot as long as there's not some words in the background that are now backwards, But
yeah, and the logo on the t-shirts in the reverse or something, right?
Exactly, right. But that takes away the fear, is knowing. It's just like a pilot. I mean, you have to put in thousands of hours, and once you put that in, flying is not hard. Actually, the learning to fly was hard. The flying's not hard. It's the same thing with making movies. Learning to make the movies is harder than actually making the movies once you have the experience.
So what you're saying is taking small steps on a daily basis to educate yourself and become better at your craft is really the key of breaking through fear.
Yeah, I'd say so. And it's also the key to building a
career,
a track record of making movies and a career. And like I said, anybody can be at home. If you want to practice, write a 3-page scene, get your two best friends together and write the scene for the woods. Go to the closest place where you can find woods near your house. Take an iPhone or a camera. I mean, I have a camera called a Sony a6300, which you can buy off of, Craigslist or something for $600, and it's 4K, shoots raw, and has focus peaking, which is really important for lenses where the screen's really small, but focus peaking, you can actually tell what's in focus, because focus is critical because your movie's not going to pass QC.
Can't fix that in post.
Right. People's eyes have to be in focus. And go off and shoot the movie, but use film language, and then you can get a DJI Osmo, and you can shoot Steadicam, and
there's so much.
But learn the language of film, which is over the shoulders, which is medium shots, which is close-ups, which it's the same language of film that Steven Spielberg uses on $200 million movies that you're going to use in the woods with your 3-page script. It's the same language.
And I just think so much time is wasted with filmmakers, especially young filmmakers or filmmakers starting out, that I did this for so many years, that you make making a movie into this giant monster of a thing that you've got to climb, and then you add all this pressure on it, like it has to do this for my career, that for my career. And when you do that, why would you move? You're petrified.
You're paralyzed. Right,
you're paralyzed by the fear of what you've created, which is all in your head.
Right.
But then I love your approach. You're just like, well, I'm just going to go cook a meal. Let's go, guys. Like I've been in the kitchen a million times. Let's do this.
Right. My crew makes fun of me because I'm always saying, gotta go. We gotta go. Let's go. What are we doing sitting around? Let's go make a movie.
I could make another 5-6 movies in the next hour. Come on, guys, let's move it.
Well, every minute counts. But you just gotta so when you're on set, get moving and start making your movie. And then I do have sayings that I like to convey, which if people listen to me on these podcasts, I can start hearing them a lot. But on set, I say, for instance, and this ties in what you're saying, I'm never going for perfect. I'm going for very good. Okay. Mm-hmm. Very important. Do not try to be a perfectionist. A collection of very good is a perfect movie, but a collection of perfect is an unfinished film. Don't try to be perfect. It relates to writing. I don't have writer's block because I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just trying to vomit on the freaking page and get something down. Then I can change it later. And when you're on set, don't get so caught up in is Yoda back there turned this way or that way, Like it's just be very good, and a collection of very good. Your editor's job is to make it perfect, And then the other one is a saying that I use all the time, because I when people are on my sets and they're work on movies the first time, we call it the Feifer Film Academy for first-time filmmakers, and they have to learn FCWTP, and that is flexible, compromising with the program. The way to make movies good, fast, and cheap, okay, because they say you can only pick two of the three.
Yeah.
Is to be FCWTP. That's flexible, compromising with the program. You have to make compromises all day long.
Every day.
You have to be flexible all day. That's okay. In fact, sometimes the compromises make for better situations. Or sometimes, a homeowner is like, you can't shoot in my living room anymore. You've destroyed my living room. And you're like, crap, I got to find something else. And then you're like, well, let's shoot at the backyard. And suddenly the scene is better And then you're like, why didn't I think of this before?
Yeah.
So you have to be with the program. If it's raining, you're either going to shoot in the rain, or you're going to cover yourself and then the rain's not going to be seen, or you're just going to go with it, and then rewrite the script a little bit. And the character's like, it's raining, and whatever. You have to go with it and just go with the flow. I see that a lot of, I'm not on other film sets. I'm on my film sets. And so a lot of people I talk to when they're on other film sets, I'm like, what's the biggest delay? Like, why did that film not get done on time? Why did you go over? Because I never shoot overtime. We always shoot 12-hour days plus lunch. So it's a 12-and-a-half-hour day, or 12, lunch is 42 minutes. So it's 12 hours plus whatever lunch was. But I very, very seldomly shoot overtime. But I'll talk to people who've been on a set for like 16 hours. Well, what was the delay? Indecisiveness. The director, the DP, they're just sitting around. They can't decide what lens to use. They can't decide where to put the camera.
Yeah.
The director wants to have long talks with the actor, and you can see the actor just like, come on, I'm an actor. I know what I'm doing. You don't need to be talking to me, And indecisiveness is just a killer of time. I mean, I'm always talking about the earth just keeps spinning. It just keeps spinning. You can't stop it. And you need that time, and every time someone's being indecisive, it just like my head is just like tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, So you have to make quick decisions, quick snap judgments. Don't worry. It's okay if you went with an 85 when maybe you should have gone with a 100 millimeter. Who cares? Who cares? So shoot it and then put on the next lens or something,
Now your output is obviously quite insane. What is your creative process like because you write all of these as well? Most of them,
I write
right?
most of them. Yeah. Sometimes I just get given scripts and then I have to polish them.
Right.
But I write a lot of them. So what's my creative process like? Well, listen, I love making movies. So I don't want to sleep. When we're on vacation, I write. I mean, there's a picture of me in Mexico in Cabo San Lucas, and I have my laptop on the bar. It's one of these swim up bars, So I swim up with my laptop. I put my laptop there and I tell my wife, you go sit by the pool and I'm going to work, And, or, if we're on vacation with my son, they'll go to sleep at 9 or 10 o'clock and I'm literally up till 3 a.m. And I'll work because my work is not only writing, but I have to do accounting. I have to do contracts. I have to get the next movie prepped. I have to network, all of these things together. So I'm trying to get everything happening at one time. And so I sit with my laptop and work, so we have Wi-Fi, something that people should know. A lot of people, it's weird, don't know this, but your phone has a personal hotspot. So you can always get the internet if you have your phone.
Right.
I was just talking to an agent recently. And he's like, damn, I don't have Wi-Fi. And and I said, you have a phone. Well, you have Wi-Fi, So
I mean, it's going to be expensive and don't download, a lot of big stuff, but you can get something done.
If you're watching movies on your phone, you can have your hotspot going on your computer.
Sure.
So there's nothing to stop you from, but you have to enjoy what you're doing. So I enjoy working. So I highly suggest people that are like, okay, well, this guy's doing all this stuff. How do I do it? Well, you could be writing scripts. Anybody can be writing scripts. It's easy. Or start writing treatments. You don't have to write a script. Write a story and hire a friend to write the script, or just write stories. You could sell stories. A lot of times too, you go to a meeting and you have a script or a treatment. And you're like, well, I don't really like that. What else you got? And you're like, don't have anything else. Well, you just screwed yourself. You should have other things, because they might be like, well, we want a romantic comedy, but we want a Christmas romantic comedy. You're like, well, I could change it to Christmas. Well, do you have a Christmas movie? No. Well, if you had one, I would have bought it from you. So you could be writing. If you've written something, you could be figuring out the blocking and breaking it down. You could be going off to grip and light houses and learning how a grip and light house will let you in, or somebody who has grip and light equipment, and you don't teach you how to open and close a C-stand, open a combo stand, how to put a HMI on top and, understand electricity, that's valuable. If you're on a set working, go to the costume designer and ask them how they break down their script. Actually, it's really interesting. You might not be, I could care less about costumes. In fact, I tell my actors and my costume designers, I don't care unless something's really bad, then I'll change it. But how they break it down is interesting, So there's lots you could be doing, even if you're not actually being hired to make a movie now, but you can make a movie without anybody, or you can at least prep a film that maybe you're waiting for someone to give you $50,000 for, but it's all prepped. You've broken it down. You can do shot lists. I'm actually more of a fan of doing floor plans instead of shot lists.
Right.
A floor plan of where the characters are going in the scene, and then from that, use little graphics to make shot lists. If storyboards are totally unnecessary if people are talking all the time. Storyboards are good for effects and stunts if you need to convey
Actions, yeah, sure.
that information to other people. But I've seen people make storyboards. It's like one person talking, another person talking, medium shot, close up, full shot. You're like, that's not necessary. If you can't,
if you can't tell that to the DP and the DP can't understand medium shot, you probably fired the wrong DP.
Right. Well, you don't have to tell them. You just block the scene. The actor, the scene, everybody watches. And you're like, okay, well, let's start here. And then we're going to come in here. And then you might have a special shot that maybe it's a dolly push in. Maybe it's a Jaws shot where you're pulling in and zooming in, back and forth, whatever it might be. Maybe those are your special moments that you're going to put into that scene. But everything else is pretty obvious, Right. And if you don't really know screen direction in line, if you have a script supervisor, they're going to help you. Your DP is going to help you, and you'll see it on the monitor, because now since we make movies digitally, it's WYSIWYG. It's what you see is what you get. People ask me all the time if I watch dailies. Well, why would I watch dailies if I'm seeing everything shot? We used to watch dailies we shot on film, and we didn't know what we're getting. We're just looking through a really bad video tap.
Right. Oh, it was horrible. Yeah.
Right.
And then if you were really fancy, you would have playback on VHS.
Right. Which
or
takes time, though. Who has time for that?
Not on your sets, obviously.
No, I don't have time to sit. I got to shoot more, because this is something also for your listeners to understand is production is all about collecting data for post-production. So everybody on your crew is all together working their butts off for 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it might be, so that basically one guy can sit in a room in the dark to edit your movie. And so the expensive part is the whole crew and the bathrooms and the food and the location, all that. So you got to really hustle, as your head says, and work your butt off to be shooting and don't be indecisive. Or if you're indecisive, you don't know, just make a decision and go. Might be wrong, but at least you made a decision. Now you're shooting. And after you made that decision, you might be, okay, well now, because I made the decision, I can move on to the next decision because I figured something out in that. It's just get to work, and don't sit there and stare at the set and wonder where you're going next,
Now, what advice do you have for dealing with distributors? Because if you've dealt with a couple over the course of your career, and they have a, let's say, checkered past or checkered present, depending on who you're dealing with.
They do, and there's a lot of tricks that distributors used through the years. A lot of tricks. I mean, let's say you have the best movie in their package of 10 films, and your movie would have gotten, say, $100,000 from France, and the other movies would have gotten $1. Well, they'll say, I sold all 10 movies to France for $100,000, so here's your $10,000.
Oh,
you don't even know. You don't even know that your film actually would have sold for $100,000 if they were being honest. Or they charge you for a trailer. So but
by the way, they don't give the other 9 films $10,000 each.
Oh, well, that's another thing.
Yeah, they wouldn't even give them that. They would just give you $10,000, and that would be the end of it.
Right. They told them they got $50, or they wanted, there's a lot of shady things that are going on with distributors. So first of all, I think the best thing you do with a distributor is tell them you want a list of other filmmakers that they've sold for, and if they're not going to keep the list and you can call them up and get references, then they're not worth talking to.
But IMDb has all that information now too. IMDb Pro, you get that information as well a lot of times if they won't give it to you.
But it's a good test of a distributor.
Sure.
You say, well, I'll go with you, but I want a list of everybody's names and numbers so I can call them up and ask how their relationship is with you. And then when you call up those producers, have you been paid? Do you feel that what you were paid was the proper amount? Were they charging you to go to shows and charging you? I mean, we all know that we can hire an editor for very little to make a trailer. Well, did they charge you $10,000 for a trailer when your editor will do it for $1,000? I mean, start getting a picture of reality, and you can figure it out pretty much on your own, and you have to be tentative with producers. What's interesting with distributors, is that I find interesting is that you might find a financier to finance a movie for $1 million. That financier is not going to make any money until that movie makes all of its money back and all the marketing costs, all the distributor costs and everything. And so at the end of the day, the financier is going to get some net profit. The distributor, though, they've built up their business through the years. They have the relationships, so they deserve to get serious money. And your movie's not going to sell without them, but they're going to get a commission, which is anywhere from 15% to 30%. And that commission is going to be first monies out on top. It's gross monies. That's a lot of money. That distributor might make more money than your financier put up $1 million.
Easily.
your financier put up $1 million, is probably not going to make any money actually, and they just have a nice big write-off. Whereas a distributor is going to be sitting on the Croisette in France, drinking their little tea, and making money off of your financier's $1 million loss.
And let's not forget capping expenses, because I've seen open-ended expenses, and you're like, well, that's it. You've just given them your money. You'll never make a dime ever.
Yeah, right. In fact, I wouldn't even give them expenses. If you want my movie, you pay the expenses. If you want my movie, then I'm going to do the key art for you. You can approve it. I'm going to give, we'll take care of the key art. We'll take care of the trailer and things like that. Like,
and deliverables and all that stuff, right?
Right. Take control of the deliverables. I mean, I do know, I won't say names, but what happens with some distributors in the past, I don't know if they're still doing it, but you'll have a master that maybe you'll say, well, you can't sell my movie without the master, so I'll retain the master. Well, little do you know, they actually have a master of their own sitting in a vault somewhere, and they're selling the film places, and you don't even know they're selling the film.
Oh, easily.
Right. So that is very frustrating, and it's criminal. They should go to jail for it, but they get a lot of them get away with it. So, but there are good distributors out there. There's good people out there. It's just very easy to get into the distribution business and be a crook. It's hard to stay in the business and be a good guy. So when you find the good guys, you really stick with them. But you can also sell your movies yourself, mostly domestically. I'm a big fan actually of trying to start your own distribution company. I mean, there's no reason why. I mean, what is a company these days with the internet? You make a website, you call it Alex Ferrari Distribution, and you have a website that shows your movie, and maybe you have some other friends who've made movies, so you ask them if you could put their movies on your website, and then you go to the
aggregators.
The aggregators or the buyers list at AFM, or you just go to the film markets. I mean, you're not going to get the same money as a distributor, but then again, you might actually make more money at the end of the day. But there's different ways to go about it, and it's not easy, and it's a tough road. That's why I actually make movies for distributors who I trust to make movies for, and they trust me to make the movies for them. Going down the road of finding financing and then finding a sales rep or distributors, it's tough. It's a tough road. It's a tough part of the business.
Yeah, and you're just basically taking it off the top. So like you get a fee to make the movie, a production fee, all that stuff, and you're done.
Right.
You're done. And they can go off and make $100 million with it.
Right. I don't even have back end on my movies unless the movie's wildly successful. So if you do a deal where you don't have back end, make something where you're not the guy in the Bel Air, what was it called? Blair Witch Project.
Oh, I know. I had him on the show, Eduardo. Yeah.
Did he make money?
No.
Right.
No. They made that he barely made. He made money on the second film, which they weren't involved with, but they were paid to do the writing of it and all that stuff. But he has a career off of it, and now he directs TV. He does a lot of TV directing. But yeah, that movie made like $400 million.
Right. But if he had something in his contract that was like, look,
5%.
I'm not trying to make.
5%.
Well, what it is like I'll make money if you make double your money back or something.
Sure.
So something that
but they did get. But by the way, they did. He wasn't completely ripped off. There was some money. He made tens of thousands of dollars, if not close to low six figures, when he should have been making millions.
Right.
But he did okay.
Right. But I suggest that don't ask for back end because you're not going to see it. But at least have a little clause in there. If the movie is wildly successful, then you're going to be okay. That's
sure.
All.
That's it.
So you're not scaring away your distributor you're making a movie for, your producer, but and you're not, but yes, that's how I make money is that I get hired to make the movie. I get paid to produce it and direct it and write it. And actually the deal I make with these companies, so they feel totally, completely like they can rely on me and my movie's not going to go over budget. If I go over budget, I pay. If I go under, I give them money back.
Yeah.
Nobody else does that. But I do it because I trust them.
Yeah,
I know. I feel like I shouldn't be able to go back to them and go, well, sorry guys, I screwed up. It rained today, and now I'm $50 over budget. If that's a way to get a company. And again, this is about a track record. This is a way to get companies to feel that they can trust you. Simply straight up, I will pay if I'm over budget, and they will see you in a whole nother light.
But you have the track experience, and also you have, I'm sure, a crew that you work with all the time, so you feel extremely comfortable, or a series of crew people that you work with all the time.
I do, but it rotates. It rotates a lot.
Sure.
You're always finding new crew in Los Angeles. There's great people out here. Great people. I mean, my director of photography, Jordy, who's now done my last 15 movies, he was an assistant camera on one of my movies. And I just liked Jordy. I said, Jordy, I'm going to make you a DP. And he's now done 15 movies for me in 3 years. And he's just a great guy. And he's got a great attitude. And he's a joy to work with. And we have a good time together. And he also knows, it's important for a DP to know that, listen, I tell all my crew, and this is important for your listeners to know, when you make a movie, that a movie set is a dictatorship. Okay. Yeah. And I always say it's a dictatorship and I'm the dick. And I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. And if you don't like it, go get another job. But I have a movie I have to make on time and on budget, and it's got to be my way or the highway. So everybody's got to listen to me. And I'm not going to listen to other outside voice. I'll listen to my DP. I'll listen to some people. But if I make a decision, I'm going with it.
Sure.
It's very important in movies. We don't have time to sit here and question people and everything. So it's a dictatorship, and that's just the way it is. Jordy, I love because Jordy understands our relationship. Jordy knows how to work within those parameters, and he's free because he knows me and he knows how we work, and we have a great time together. And he knows if I say, Jordy, listen, I'm out of time. We have to get this shot done, and we have to get it set up in 15 minutes, and we got to be out of here. Also, I'm going to overtime. Jordy's like, okay, let's do it. Because he's become a partner. So. But there's crew members, mostly in Los Angeles. There's really great young people. There's really great crew members. I mean, my friend Stacy is my sound mixer on my last film. He's the sound mixer on Fresh Off the Boat. He works on major network television shows, but he comes back and works for me because we have a great relationship. We're good friends. We've known each other for 20 years. But he enjoys working on my movies because he enjoys the process. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, he might not be able to work a day, and then I get a sound mixer I've never met before. And that sound mixer sees the way I work and sees that I enjoy the process and we're quick and we're decisive. And that guy just falls right in line, does a great job. So a lot of it is how you treat people. But at the same time, they know that if you're committed to getting that day done on time, they know they're going to go home on time. They know that you care about safety. Safety is very important. Mm-hmm. They know that you care about them, care about making sure their food, calling lunch exactly in 6 hours so that, you're not, then everybody's happy. And so you don't have to have a team of people that have worked with you before. Basically, people can tell what kind of person you are within 15 minutes of that movie set, of being on that movie set. And if you set a good tone, it doesn't matter if you worked with them before. They'll fall in place and they'll enjoy the process.
And would you agree that a professional crew will smell out a director who's indecisive and doesn't know what they're doing within 15 minutes?
Oh yeah, 100%, yes. And that's why I say never admit that you don't know something. Like just don't be, like a prey, like prey's been injured so the other animals can smell them out. And
you smell the blood. No, it's especially when you got some of these, I've worked with DPs who are, 20 years, my elder, and they've been, my God, they've been in the rabbit hole many times. And if I've seen them on set with other directors, young directors, and if they smell blood, man, I've seen it with production designers. I've seen it with all these, they're seasoned guys. Yes. They will railroad that director.
They will. And it's unfortunate instead of wanting to help them, but they do that because there's a lot of insecurity that comes in a film. So that person actually, if they behave that way, they're actually really insecure. Very much so. They are in their career, they're a DP, but they always want to be a director or they don't like the producers showing up in their Mercedes when they're driving something, and it's insecurity is what it really comes down to. Mm-hmm. Because really somebody who's been in their career a long time and they see a director doesn't know what they're doing, it'd be nice if they just stepped over and said, let me help you out. I can help you out. I do that. I like to help people out. I like to give people opportunities that they never had before. I've started a lot of careers and everybody, I think all of your listeners should really do that. And just like I said, hire your friends to act if they can do the job. If they're not up to the par, then they shouldn't be on set. But if they can do the job just as well as somebody you don't know, give them the job. Or if you have somebody who wants to be a script supervisor and never done it before. I had someone come to me and say, I want to be a PA on your movies. I said, you're a mom, you have kids. You can't be a PA. You're not going to work for me. It's too much running around, whatever. I said, I'll tell you what, I've got a script supervisor job an opening. I said, the movie's in 2 weeks. If you can spend a week learning how to be a script supervisor, call me back and let me know that you think you can do it. I'll give you the job if you think you can do it. Wow. And I gave her the job. She's now a professional script supervisor. She now works steadily in the business, but because she just said, I'm going to learn it. I'm not saying that script supervising is easy, that anybody can do it.
No, it's not.
But it is a job that you can just jump into. And if you ask for help from the director and from your editor and from the AD.
First AD, sure.
And you can always fix script. You can't, if you have a director like me who knows screen direction, continuity is not as big of an issue. You can always fix your script notes later. But I'm just saying there's certain jobs where you can just jump in or you can give your friend the job if your friend is committed. If they're not committed, get rid of them. I mean, I've had plenty of crew members where I fire them right off the bat. Like right off the bat, if I see that they're not committed to the process or not enjoying the process, they're out of there. Because I like my sets to be fun so I can be creative. The moment I feel tension, I lose my creativity. Or if I have an actor, sometimes I have a name actor show up on set I've had a name actor show up on set who's literally on drugs. And that really stifles your creativity. And then you call up the agent, and the actor yells at you and whatever, like that's happened, and it does happen periodically, not very often, but that really stifles creativity. So
it stops a lot of things.
Yes. Yeah.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
It also burns time. So you can see me looking at my watch or my iPhone like, time.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions. First of all, this has been epic. So thank you so much. I'm going to ask you now a few questions I ask all of my guests. Because I could keep talking to you for another 3 or 4 hours.
I could talk for 3 or 4 hours.
I know.
Thanks.
What advice would you give a filmmaker wanting to break into the business today?
Well, I think that, I mean, we've gone over it a bit, but one is breaking into the business. It's a funny, the definition of what does that mean? Breaking into the business?
It's larceny.
Okay?
It's larceny.
Well, but here's the thing: is that this is the business that's like it's if you could go get your iPhone or go get a Sony A6300 or a Canon T2i or whatever it is, and go start shooting, you're in the business actually. Now, when you talk about in the business of selling movies, or you're talking about in the business of making a living, being paid. Now, I suggest, first of all, I really highly suggest coming to a place like Los Angeles, where there's a lot of film going on. So getting into the business on a level is actually getting on sets and being paid. Now, in California and in the United States, federal law says you actually can't work for free. You actually have to be paid. So my production assistants make $13.25 an hour. So on a 12-hour day, that's $185.50 a day. So
that's a pretty good salary for a PA. Generally I've seen them for $50 a day.
Well, it's actually illegal.
It's completely illegal. Completely illegal.
Yeah. Now listen, if somebody's offering you $50 a day to work, go work. Don't go to the labor board and complain that somebody only paid you $50. Just go work and get the most out of it. If you can afford to do it. But if you get on Craigslist and find jobs, if you network with people, you'll start getting work. And if you get on one movie, you now have 30 new friends or whatever amount of people on that you have to network with. You have Instagram and Facebook. You can stay in touch with them. And then you can say, what movie are you on next? Where are you going? Hey, do you know anybody? And start networking. And you're in the business like that, right? Now, it might be as a production assistant, but now the way to get in the business at the next level is if you're a production assistant, go to the camera department. Say, hey, can I just slate for you? Can I just bring you lenses? Can I help open up your tripod? Just a basic, or go to the grips. Hey, can I carry some sandbags for you while you teach me how to what a C-stand is versus a combo stand? Go to the costume department. Go to the costume designer. Hey, do you mind if I assist you whenever I'm down and I'm not doing anything? Can I come assist you in the costume department? Or the makeup girls, whatever it might be.
Art department, sure, anyway.
Or the art department's a great way to get into it because they always need help,
Yes, they do.
And it's easy for a producer to say to a PA, well, go help the art department. Or you could say, I'm helping the art department. They go, great, keep helping them, So you're in the business like that. Now, what I always tell people is the only people who actually make money in this business are producers and directors. That's it. I mean, you can make good money as a union AC or a union DP, but if you want to be rich, okay, because a lot of people are watching your show and they have dreams of being rich, okay, the way to get rich is be a producer and director. But that means you have to put yourself out there. That means you have to develop scripts. That means you have to connect with people. That means you have to say, I can do it, That means you have to take on an entire movie on your own. It means that you have to take a higher level of responsibility. I work with a lot of people. They don't really want that. They're just perfectly happy. And there's nothing wrong with it. Just being a camera assistant and being a camera assistant for life. And they love being around the camera. They love being on set, but they don't want the responsibility.
Sure.
But if you want to make big bucks in this business, a lot of it is taking on responsibility. And if you really know your craft and you're really learning it and you care, and then you're willing to take on responsibility, and put yourself out there and network with people, and then things can happen for you. Make that business card that says I'm a producer, start writing scripts or just write stories. Stories are harder to come by than scripts. Scripts are easy. The story with the right twist and everything is actually harder than writing the script. Once you have the story and the outline, the script is actually easy. For me, it actually takes me longer to write an outline than it does to write the script, because once I know the story, I can pump out the script in 3 days. Sometimes I'll sit and futz around with an outline for months. Sometimes they'll come to me in 6 hours. Stories are easy though. I can literally pop out 30 story ideas in 10 minutes, so that's my advice to getting in the business. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Now, can you tell me a book that had the biggest impact on your life or career?
Well, I'm glad I have a book, because my son gives me a hard time, because my son is like just this voracious reader and reads everything and anything. But my favorite book is Christopher Vogler's The Writer's Journey.
Sure.
And
I've had him on the show. He's great.
Amazing. I mean, because what I love about that book, and it's not really about the book. In fact, you can literally Google it right now and look at a diagram that diagrams out the writer's mythology. Every movie breaks down to the writer's mythology, and I'm sure when you had him on, he, every
broke it down.
Storyline, right? It's somebody in the ordinary world, and something happens. They break out. Now they're in the extraordinary world. If you understand that structure, you could write your script so much easier. You could tell your story so much easier. Stop trying to break the mold, because The Godfather is that, Apocalypse Now is that, Citizen Kane is that, Star Wars is that. It's all the same story. And it's, unfortunately, we all wanted to see the same damn story, and it just is. But if you want to make a living making movies, you might want to, stick to what works. And what works is, stories go for thousands and thousands of years. People have been, telling stories, and they're the same. They really are. I mean, the journey, like when I write a script, the hardest part is the journey in the middle. I know how it's going to begin. I know how it's going to end. There's just a million different pathways you can go. Someone like Christopher's book probably can help you with that, because you have to meet the sage, the Obi-Wan Kenobi along the way. You have to get to that point, and then it all falls apart, and you have to go back again, and what he calls return with the elixir, things like that. Like if you understand that stuff, it'll help you tell your stories better, write your outlines better, write your treatments, or write entire scripts better.
Now, what lesson took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
Oh, what lesson took me the longest to learn? Oh, that's a good question. Well, I don't know. That's a good question. You've stumped me. What lesson taught me? Well, I don't know. Maybe one lesson that's important to learn, and I probably still haven't learned it, is that it's all right where I am in my career. A lot of people say to me, I had somebody work for me as a production. Somebody called me up, a friend of mine, and said, my wife wants to work for you because we want to start making our own movies, and we see that you do it. And she's wondering if she can work for you and learn how you make your movies. I said, well, she's pretty smart woman, actually. And I said, why don't we make her my production coordinator? And so she calls me up, and I say, this is what you have to do. And she's like, she's kind of done it before. So she said, would you, you're on my way to set, because we were shooting about an hour east of LA. She said, would you pick me up on the way, and we'll drive together? And I said, why is that? She goes, because I want to ask questions. I want to ask you questions. I'm like, great. I'm paying you so you could sit in my car and ask me questions the entire trip. But that I told you the other story about the PA who didn't ask me any questions. So I'm like, that's fine. So what's the first question she asked me? So here she is working for minimum wage. She's working for me because she's trying to learn how to make movies. And the first question she asked me is, how come you're not making bigger movies?
Oh, son of a...
And I'm like, what do you mean? What's wrong with the movies I'm making? What's wrong with my career now? You're working for me, and yet.
Wow, man. What a horrible, well, it's like you eat, you just, I'm just going to give you a meal. I'm a chef. I mean, what are you doing in this restaurant? Why aren't you, at Spago's? Like, why aren't you
right.
Why would you say something like that?
Right. Well, I gave it to her too.
And I'm feeding you, and I'm paying you on top of it.
Right. Right. You're working for me for 12, 14 hours a day.
But yeah, you're criticizing me.
And you're criticizing me. Now,
so how did that go? How did that go?
Well, listen, I explained to her, because I learned it through the years, that I make movies. There's nothing wrong with making movies. Now, whether I'm making $200 million movies or $300,000 movies, I'm happy. And actually, I have a lot more freedom making my movies than the guys making $200 million movies.
Absolutely.
And I would like to make $200 million movies. I wish that a studio would watch this podcast and go, damn, why aren't we hiring Mike Feifer to make our movies rather than this kid who just destroyed our movie and now we had to hire, and so something I did recognize, and now that I'm 50 years old, because that's something that your listeners should recognize, is that time really freaking it's crazy. I can't believe I used to be the young guy on sets.
Oh, now, I know. I used to be the youngest guy in the room too.
Right. Now I'm the old guy. It's crazy. But I still feel young at heart. I still play ice hockey. I still making more movies. I still have more energy. People come to me all the time. How do you have so much energy? Because I love what I do.
No, just say cocaine. Just cocaine.
It's uppers,
It's just uppers, straight up.
No, it's really loving what you do. It's what gives you energy, Also, time is money. So when you're on set, I'm like, I gotta go because I need time. The more time I have, the better movie I can make. The more shots I can do, the more coverage I can do, the more time I can spend on the next scene. So, anyways, I think that's something is recognizing that it took me a while to recognize that it's okay. I don't have to be the guy who's making the next Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
But I'm making movies. I'm enjoying myself. My wife's an actress, and she's in my movies a lot. And we're a filmmaking family, and we love what we do.
I always try to tell people that, because everyone was like, I want to be the next Chris Nolan or the next Fincher, or the next Spielberg or Scorsese. I'm like, guys, first of all, you're not going to be those guys because they're already here. We don't need another Christopher Nolan because we got another. And you can never out Chris Nolan. That's just not the way it is. I came to this conclusion as well. I'm happy making the movies that I'm making. I'm making small little indie films that are important to me, that I have complete creative control over.
Right.
And, I don't need to go off and make a $200 million movie. I'm okay with that. If that call comes in, I'll take the meeting like you would.
Right.
But I'm happy. And that is such an important thing. Would you rather be miserable making Avengers Endgame? Or would you rather be happy making the last 8 movies you just did?
I know. I mean, imagine the guys that were on Solo, and Kathleen, who was it? Kathleen Kennedy comes to them and says, "Sorry guys, we're firing you and we're hiring Ron Howard." I mean, imagine the pain of that. You're directing a Star Wars movie and you just lost your job. I mean, it's painful.
And then they go on to win the Oscar for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse,
right. Which was brilliant, by the way.
Which is one of the best animated films I've seen in a long, long time. It's
just brilliant. I mean, they really broke the mold,
And maybe they could have done that with Solo, but who knows? But that's just another person's sandbox, and you just like when you walk into a Star Wars movie, you understand it's like a Marvel movie, like.
It's got to be right.
It's got to fit in a box, guys.
Well, that's exactly what. By the way, something that I think is important to convey it's one of my mantras is movies are not. Well, movies are art, but to me, it's actually the greatest form of art, which is commercial design.
Yeah.
So commercial design to me is more. So, for instance, Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock didn't even get famous until after he died. I mean, he made these crazy designs, these crazy paintings with things everywhere, and he used marbles to make and that was just for himself. I mean, it was therapeutic, but he wasn't making it for an audience. When you're making a product for an audience, to me, that's the greatest form of art. So an iPhone is freaking brilliant because
it's commercial art.
Everyone has them. A Porsche 911, they've been making the same design since the 50s, or 40 or 30s, and it's commercial design. And the greatest commercial designer movies has got to be Spielberg. I mean, who makes Jurassic Park and Indiana Jones and all that, and E.T. and, so there's nothing wrong with being a commercial designer. And what I like to say is that if I had gone to car design school, which I wanted to as a kid, and graduate car design school, and I don't get a job at Ferrari, I get a job at Honda and I'm doing dashboards or something but I'm going to make the best damn Honda dashboard I can, or I'm going to design the best damn Honda I can. And that Honda is going to sell and make way more money than any Ferrari. There's a lot of pride to be taken in that. So with movies, I think it's important to look at your movies as products. Who are the audience that you try? What audience is widest, And And that's why I make these Lifetime movies, because that's what makes me a living right now. That's what people ask for and they order. So I'm gonna make the best damn Lifetime movie I can. Or if I'm gonna make The Dog Who Saved Christmas, I mean, I made The Dog Who Saved Christmas, and that led to The Dog Who Saved Christmas, The Dog Who Saved Christmas Eve, and there were 3 more Dog Who Saved Christmas movies that I didn't direct. And I only had 11 days to make that movie. The Dog Who Saved Christmas. So, within the time frames and within the constraints and the parameters, make the best damn movie you can, and make something that's a product that could sell. So look at the marketplace, go walk around the AFM, go to the website, go to, it's just like we used to do the video stores. You used to be able to walk around the video stores and see what was out there, and recognize that you're making a product. And also when you're making a product, we talked about QC and post-production and everything. It's got to have good finish or else it's not going to sell. It's got to be finished correctly. When you're on set too, I call myself quality control. When I'm looking at my monitor, okay, it's all about what's on my monitor. It's not about what's 10 feet that way and 5 feet that way. If someone's eyes are not in focus, I can't use the shot. I have to turn to my AC. And sometimes I have to turn to my DP and go, he's got to come off. He's not pulling. I don't know what's wrong, but he's not pulling focus correctly. We got to put somebody else in there, because at the end of the day, I'm quality control. And so you're making a product. So you got to make sure everything's in focus. You got to make sure that it looks best to your eye. If you're shooting in a set that just doesn't look good, use longer lenses, compress the image, and throw the background out of focus. Now you've actually turned your crappy set into a $200 million shot with a long lens, and you've compressed everything, and now it looks great.
It's. I love your analogy, which I'm going to steal, by the way, of the car factory going to car school and not getting a Ferrari. Ferrari would be Avengers, where Hondas would be Lifetime movies, and there's nothing wrong with that. Right. Nothing wrong with that, but that's okay. And that's what I try to tell filmmakers so much, because they get so caught up in the Ferrari. I'm sorry, it's my last name, so it's a weird thing that I say Porsche. So Porsche. You're so caught up in designing for Porsche or Lamborghini, which is like the echelon of design and it's great and everything. But you know what? You got to make Honda look as best as can be. Why wouldn't you? What's the problem with that? And it's just mindset. It's an ego. It's all this kind of stuff. And if you're happy just being an artist, then damn it, man. Isn't that why we're here?
Right. And what's cool about it too is that, like I talked about, is that it's the film language no matter what. So if you're watching the Avengers, they're still using
a close-up shot,
over the shoulders and close-ups and wide shots and tracking shots. It's still the same. They have a lot more money to play with, but it's still the same film language. So if you're on set at home, creating your own set, filming, you're actually using the same film language. So you can make something as dramatic. And what's cool about movies too is my wife doesn't want to watch Marvel movies. She'd rather watch, some interesting indie film, let's say, And so that's a cool thing too about making movies, which, if I wanted to start a car company, I would need billions and billions of dollars, maybe be Elon Musk,
right.
And maybe start a car company so you can make a product to compete with BMW or with Honda or Toyota, right? But the cool thing about movies is that you could actually make a product in your house that actually can compete with Marvel. You can make a product that we talked about the
Blair Witch
Project,
Paranormal. There.
Paranormal or El Mariachi. I mean, Robert Rodriguez made a product that actually competed with $100 million films. It played in the theaters at the same time, in the same cineplexes, right next door.
He made millions of bucks with it, and it's launched an insane career.
Right, and there's people who actually would rather watch El Mariachi than watch a Marvel movie, And because that's the cool thing about movies, I think, is that you're making a product that you don't have to need billions and billions of dollars to compete, So,
at the end of the day, it's an hour and a half of time.
Right. And you don't need a license. You don't need a degree. You just need to get out there and just work hard and learn your craft. Learn the craft. It's really everybody's craft.
And that was the thing I've said before is the studios, I think, in many ways are scared of this new generation of YouTube content and streaming content, because now literally an hour and a half, I'm fighting for an hour and a half of your time, whether that's this podcast.
Right.
Or watching Avengers. Yeah. It's the same. It's an hour and a half.
Yeah. Well, look at video games have done. I mean, you're talking about not just an hour and a half, but kids will spend 10 hours and a video game will come out and it'll make $500 million literally the moment it comes out, No,
they'll watch other people play the video games, which is still bonkers to me, but I get it.
I know. I mean, PewDiePie, the guy is the number one guy and he's making millions. And it just started because kids were watching him play Minecraft.
30. I think he's making about 30, 40 million a year now.
Yeah.
Just off.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
It is.
And last question, the toughest question of the day, sir.
Uh-oh.
3 of your favorite films of all time.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, my favorite film that's more of your standard classic film history favorite film is Citizen Kane. Okay. Citizen Kane, I think, is the greatest movie of all time for various reasons. One is because Orson Welles was 25 years old.
Well, 23, wasn't he 23 or 25? I think he was 23.
Early 20s.
Yeah,
was
yeah.
he 23?
He was 23. He was 23, if I remember correctly.
He wrote, he directed, he produced it, and he starred in it. And that movie, if you will talk about the film language, if you watch Citizen Kane, it uses montage. It uses transitions that we still use today. It uses every bit of film language you could imagine. Flashbacks. I mean, the range of film language that he has a musical number in that movie. I mean, I really highly suggest people see Citizen Kane and really just think about back then when it was made and look at the movies before that, right? And look at the movies after. Every film convention that he used. Now, he might have, he watched Sergei Eisenstein movies or whatever, but every film convention after that, like, can go right back to Citizen Kane.
No, it's before Cain and after Cain. I get you.
There is. I mean, to me, it's the greatest movie of all time. And, do I turn it on and watch it all the time because I get such, enjoyment out of it? It's brilliant. And I like watching it periodically. It's on my DVR right now.
Yeah.
But the movie that I actually like to watch the most, then I'll actually turn on and I'll just
it's on.
Just
God.
I don't know. There's something about my favorite movie to watch is actually a Spielberg film. Can you guess which Spielberg film would be my favorite film?
Oh God, there's so many, but
you'll never guess because nobody.
Okay, all right. So there's one or two of them. So is it an obscure Spielberg or is it a big Spielberg?
It's somewhat obscure.
Always.
Nope. No, that's a terrible film.
Okay, no, that was an obscure. Well, I enjoy Hook. I like Hook.
I'll give you a hint. It stars one of our greatest actors right now, but as a young boy.
Empire of the Sun.
Empire of the Sun.
Empire of the Sun.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, Christian Bale.
Christian Bale. That movie is epic. And it got no respect. But if you go back and watch that movie, that movie has so many moments that are just, it's amazing. I mean, Spielberg was on another level when he made that movie. And I think he was on such a high level that people didn't respect it because they were so used to E.T. and Jaws and all that.
Well, he made that, if I remember correctly, that was 87 when that got released. So that would be after Color Purple, because he got little respect for Color Purple, but that was 85.
Right.
Yeah, which is a great film. But everyone's like, but wait a minute, you're Spielberg, you make Raiders and E.T., like, what are you doing with Color Purple? And then Empire was like, oh yeah? Well, now I'm going all in. And he did something so outside the box. But the funny thing is that Empire of the Sun is more relevant to his kind of films today. Like he doesn't do the blockbuster. I mean, he did Ready Player One, which I loved, but and there was nobody else who could have directed that film. It was just perfect for him. But he's making Lincoln, and he's making the Spies movie with Tom Hanks, and The Terminal, and these. I love The Terminal. But these kind of films that are not Spielbergian, if you will.
Films that I don't like too. I mean, he's making films that I don't want to watch, to tell you the truth. I mean,
there's some of them that are hard to watch. Yeah, but that's what he wants to do as an artist now. Why not?
Right. I mean, what's the one he did with the horse?
War Horse. Yeah, I still haven't seen that.
It's a very hard film to watch. I thought Bridge of Spies was hard, but Empire of the Sun, to me, has these moments that are just epic, and I think that everybody should watch them because I once watched Charlie Rose interview Robert Zemeckis once, and what really stuck with me was Robert Zemeckis said, "You can have 3 great shots or moments in a movie, and the audience will walk away remembering those 3 great moments, and they won't even remember anything else about the movie, and they'll think the movie was great."
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing about audiences, It's kind of like your memories, you remember, a vacation better than you remember what you did, 3 Saturdays ago or something.
Yeah, what do you remember out of Raiders of the Lost Ark? Like there's a handful of moments in that movie that you remember. Right. I mean, I'm sure I've seen it 1,000 times, and so have you, but.
Right. So Empire of the Sun, though, has these moments, like literally every 3 minutes is this amazing moment where Christian Bale as a young boy is just, you're seeing it through his eyes. And it's just like one moment after another. And I just think it's an epic story and an epic movie, So
that's one of them. That's one of your favorite movies. Two other ones?
Well, Citizen Kane. And
Citizen Kane. Okay, yes,
right.
yes.
And then I don't know. I'm very influenced too by 70s movies that I grew up that would like scared the crap out of me, like Jaws and Exorcist and or like The French Connection, or I don't know. There was a time in the 70s when movies were really, really raw and
they
really
will never be made again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Never
well, it can happen again, I think. So I don't know. I don't really want to pick.
Well, so I always like telling people this, like if you put in Jaws right now, it holds up. Like it still holds so well.
Well, and you know why it holds up? I think it holds up simply because the shark broke.
Of course. Well, that's of course. The shark broke.
Which is a good lesson for filmmakers is you don't have to show, mostly if you're making a low budget movie, let the audience put in the imagery in their head. You don't have to show
Hitchcock. It's Hitchcock. Like, do you want to watch the murder happening or do you want to hear the murder behind the closed door happening?
Yes.
What's more terrifying?
Hitchcock, Strangers on a Train. There's these moments in that film. That's one of my favorite films. That's just like, it just sets, there's this tone to that movie, that's really, Out of the Past is another film noir. I like a lot of film noir films too, like Out of the Past or Paths of Glory. It's Kubrick. If you want to see a Kubrick film, go see Paths of Glory with Kirk Douglas. It's got this tone to it that's just this like impending doom, morbidity, and the way the music is, the way the shots are.
The tracking shots and inside. I mean, I can go Kubrick. I could go deep Kubrick on you. So,
there you go.
I'm a Kubrick. Oh yeah, I could go deep. What's your favorite Kubrick movie?
Well,
I know it's hard.
I mean, I'd probably say The Shining. I
do love The Shining.
The Shining hit something with me because years ago I bought this VHS cassette of The Shining, and from I don't know, it was like Walmart for like $2.99 or something, and there was a making of at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
And you can find it on the internet now.
Yeah.
And just seeing Kubrick just sitting around the Stanley Hotel, and he's got a typewriter,
and he's typing. Yeah.
And he's this like New York guy that would be a cab driver who wasn't a director. Yeah. And I like had this whole new like appreciation for Kubrick because he's just a dude. He was just this normal guy who's just brilliant. I don't know. And it's sort of, so every time I see The Shining, I harken back to that behind the scenes making of that. I don't know who did that.
That would be his daughter.
His daughter did it.
His daughter directed. Yeah.
It's kind of like I love Apocalypse Now. Apocalypse Now is one of my favorite movies.
Hearts of Darkness. Oh.
Right. I mean, there's a shot of Francis Ford Coppola in the jungle with his shirt off at a typewriter typing away. Like that's so when I watch Apocalypse Now, I think of Francis Ford Coppola in the jungle typing away. And it's so I don't know. Sometimes I connect because I'm very big on production. And sometimes I connect the movie with the actual production and making what it took to make it. I saw this great documentary on Lawrence of Arabia, and they built this like town out in the middle of nowhere in Africa, and these people weren't home with their families for months and months and months and months, but they knew they were making something great. And to me, it actually makes the movie more enjoyable to see the effort that was put in.
It's mine's, by the way, is Eyes Wide Shut. I absolutely adore Eyes Wide Shut. I think Eyes Wide Shut it's a masterpiece on so many different levels, and by the way, it was Kubrick's favorite too. Kubrick's, out of all his work, it was his favorite. Yeah, look, I love Full Metal Jacket. I love The Shining. I love Clockwork Orange. I love Doctor Strangelove in 2001.
Well, Doctor Strangelove is a whole nother level too. So,
but the thing is, and this is what's, I'm sorry, sorry, audience, we are now geeking out, so I apologize. We'll be over with this interview soon enough. Scorsese said, very, very important. So Spielberg, they're like, for every 10 of our films, Stanley made one.
Right.
And basically because it's that good. Like every time Stanley got up to the plate, not only did he hit a home run, he hit a grand slam, and the ball just went out into a place that no one had ever seen before. And he just every single time. And I remember, I could talk for literally hours about Kubrick, but like when Full Metal Jacket came, he was doing Full Metal Jacket years. He was in prep years before Platoon showed up. And all these, so I think it was his producer, Jan's, which is his son-in-law, that said, or brother-in-law, that said he's like, let all the kids go out and make their Vietnam movie, I'll show up and make mine. And he's like, and then he makes the definitive, because I don't know how many, honestly, and I know Platoon's a fantastic movie. I don't know a lot of people who still talk about Platoon, but I know a lot of people who talk about Full Metal Jacket, especially the first half.
Right, right,
Oh,
right.
that first 10 minutes is just some of the best cinema ever made.
Yeah, and Arlie Ermey just died.
Yeah, he just passed. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, well, when a movie is made about, it's like the great thing about movies is you can touch on emotions that you really can't understand. So for instance, Full Metal Jacket touches on the craziness of war, the insanity of going to war, and all that. Whereas Platoon was in the war, and it was a very real, dramatic movie. But I think sometimes a story that hits another higher level, like an Apocalypse Now, for instance, I mean,
but pretty much almost every Kubrick movie has that. Like he always, like from Clockwork Orange to Eyes Wide Shut to Full Metal Jacket to even The Shining, he's making a commentary.
Yes, yeah, and I think that's something really to strive for when you have that freedom. Someone like me is trying to make a living making movies, and Kubrick made 60.
It's unheard of, the kind of freedom he had, and I've actually spoken to many people who worked with him over the years, and I was told, people always thought of him as a recluse, but he was not a recluse at all. Right. He was extremely fiscally responsible. He never went over budget. He just kept his crew super small. And he's like, only the people I need so I can have time. That was his big thing, time. So he could be 3 weeks with the two biggest movie stars in the world at the time, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, for 3 weeks on one scene.
Yeah, that would be an interesting movie to make. A movie about that moment in time with Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise. That would be really fascinating.
Oh my God, that would be a fantastic film. All right, and so
by the way, with Kubrick, I think because he made Spartacus.
Yes,
he made
but that was a studio film, and he hated it. He hated that process.
But I think that probably would put him on the map as someone then go off and make. So again, it's about being responsible, creating a track record for yourself, and then having the freedom to do things. Some companies have a track record where they don't even come to my set. They don't even give me notes on my scripts. On my movies, and I just deliver them. So that's something that's important, I think, for your listeners. I think what Kubrick gave him the freedom is he created a track record for himself. He made some great movies, and that gave him the freedom to do what he wanted to do.
Yeah, and it's the only other guy that I know of that has that kind of freedom is Eastwood. Like Clint basically could do whatever he wants, whenever he wants at Warner's, and he made them. What was he made them? He made a couple of movies recently, just like. Who else in the world could have made these movies? And there's just nobody. There's like no one else is going to get greenlit by a studio to make these movies.
The one on the train with the actual guys.
Like, who does that? Like, who does that? And just like, but it's Clint. And Clint is a genius that way. So where can people find you, your work, and all 5,000 of the movies you've directed?
Well, I mean, IMDb is the best way to keep track, and there's a list. I have a website I don't update, and I should, but I just never get around to updating it. So that's
because you're making movies, sir. You're too busy.
It's true. I am too busy to be updating websites, and because I'm making so many, they have to be updated like every 2 months. The website.
I love
it. So Instagram is good because I like to put a lot of pictures up from set on Instagram. So my Instagram is Mike Feifer, and just MikeFeifer. Facebook, that's Michael Feifer. And then like IMDb, that's a good way. And because IMDb, I think you can keep track of movie by movie, and Instagram. I'm going to keep trying to put up more behind the scenes on Instagram. I had been doing it on Facebook, and but Instagram sort of, my son gets on me because his Facebook's only for old people. So I'm trying to make my Instagram more up to date.
Mike, I mean, I can't tell you how much of a joy it's been talking to you. We've closed in our almost 2 hours in this conversation. So I do appreciate your time. You should be making a movie somewhere, so I appreciate your time.
I am. I start one on Monday.
I'm sure you do, sir. I'm surprised you're not walking to set right after this conversation. But no, seriously, you've been an inspiration, man, and I really hope that everyone listening gets a little bit of, you're a great story, and that's why I wanted to have you on, because you have an inspirational story, but it's a very realistic story in the sense of, look, this is the nuts and bolts of getting a career off the ground and making movies for a living.
Yeah, and listen, don't forget, I didn't go over this, but my wife hired me to make a movie for her, or a woman, and I ended up marrying her, falling in love, location scouting, marrying her. So not only did I have a career, but I have a wife and a son, all because of the movie business,
Right.
And something to talk to my father about. That's all we ever talk about is movies,
Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure, Brad. Thanks again for dropping some crazy knowledge bombs on the tribe today.
Great meeting you. Great talking to you. And be glad to be back anytime. So, okay.